I've just literally lost everything. I mean, literally the week that I was ready to hand over the last car, two gentlemen from Australia walked by and I said, "What are you doing passing the best coffee in the world?" I said, "2 double tall mochas with whipped cream. I make my whipped cream fresh. You're gonna love it." They came back for the next week, and on the 7th day, the general manager handed me a card and said, "Kenton, we'd like you to come to Australia one day."
From one small coffee cart on the streets of Seattle to one of the most iconic specialty coffee brands in Australia, today's guest didn't follow a playbook, he wrote his own. In this conversation, we talk about the early days, what it took to scale, the brilliant times, the terrible times, and most importantly, all the lessons and stories in between. Please welcome to the show a true pioneer in specialty coffee and Australian franchising, Kenton Campbell. Where did coffee begin?
I went to fill up at a petrol station. I looked at the petrol pumps and I looked at the coffee board, and the first thing that popped in my mind is the coffee is more important than the petrol. I can make $1 million if I do it $1 at a time. People get discouraged when they go backwards, but I've gone backwards. I mean, I call myself the mistake maker more than I do an entrepreneur.
When you've got a couple and one of the two has a huge dream, and sometimes that dream is so big that there's only enough space for one huge dream between the two of you. How did you navigate that with Rachel?
We went through pain until I realized how to take her along for the ride. I was so far into dreaming about the next day that I wasn't living today. I wasn't living today. So was it worth it?
Kenton Campbell, welcome to World Class Voices.
Sam, thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. I'm very excited for this. I thought we'd start off with an interesting one. You've achieved some extraordinary things in your life. And one interesting piece that I've found speaking to people that have achieved extraordinary things is usually the young entrepreneur as a child is either categorically knows that they're going to achieve greatness. They might not know how, but they categorically know. And then on the flip side, you've kind of got the guy or girl that just does something that they love. They might make shoes, they might flip burgers, they might make coffee, and they just end up there because they want to be the best at what they do. If we go back into the young childhood of Kenton, did you categorically know that you would be here sitting today talking about the incredible things that you've achieved and the incredible lessons that you've learnt achieving those things? Or did you just take one day at a time and fall in love with coffee and now we're here?
I'll just put my hand up. I'm a typical entrepreneur. Yeah, I absolutely knew. I just didn't know what the word entrepreneur was. I just knew as a young boy, in fact, as early as 5, I watched these people building some apartments right in front of where I could see this whole drive-in, and it was going to be in my way, watching the drive-in for free. And I remember going out there, freckle face, copper top head, and an attitude saying, "What are you doing? You're wrecking it for me." And one of the gentlemen said, "Well, we're building these things." And I'm like, "Well, why?" "Well, because we want to make money." And that stuck with me, that short glimpse. And was the first one I can remember was, so if you build that, you make money. And coming from not very much money as I grew up, it started to be definitely the thing I wanted to do. I thought if I make money, I won't have the same problems maybe in my life. Fast forward maybe a year, and I had my first business. It was a bottle collection agency. So I was out with a shopping trolley and knocking on all the doors of all the local, college students that stayed in the same apartment complex, and using my, cute little freckle face, just said, "Can I have your bottles?" And I don't know how long it was. It was probably a few weeks or a month that I was doing this. And I did a $5.01 day. I broke $5. And I went out and I bought a couple of packets, half-pounders of M&Ms, a couple of Cokes. I drank and ate it all. And then I threw it all up. And then I wanted to fucking do it again. I wanted to do it again. So I just thought, if I do something worthwhile in my life and I get rewarded for it, it just sat with me.
And so if we set the scene, so where were you born? Where did you grow up? And if you cast your mind back, what was that like?
I was born in California, and moved. My parents broke up when I was about 1, and my brother and myself and my mom went to Southern Oregon with my grandparents.
Which is just north of California.
Yeah, just north.
Yeah.
So we're on the border of California in a place called Cave Junction, sort of like Nimbin here. Yeah,
Sort of like Nimbin.
Nimbin, yeah. You blink and you miss it, and if you're out in the car, 3 people ask you if you want marijuana before you get to the petrol station or before you get to the grocery store. I grew up in a great town for those years, and then when I was about 5, we moved up to Eugene, Springfield, which is in the middle of Oregon, and that's sort of where I started to find it. That was the place that I thought, I want something. I just didn't know what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's the desire to, like, when we grow up in a household where money is a preventer, it's the desire to solve that problem with money.
Well, to look back, in your adult life, you always think, was it me? Was I a bad kid? And it wasn't until I was probably in my late 30s, I remember all the fights that used to happen in my household were all around money. That was a big part of it anyway. And it's probably one of the drivers I had, because when you don't have something, you want it. And you think that maybe that will solve the things in your life later on. And so I think it was both that I was really out there. My mind was in dreamland constantly. And I never thought I couldn't when I was younger, especially. Never thought I couldn't. I think probably living in Springfield across from Weyerhaeuser is what really did it, though. So I was 12, maybe a bit younger, and I was looking at all these logs across the road at a place called Weyerhaeuser, this old lumber mill. And I thought, if I can make $1 for every one of those logs, I could be a millionaire one day. And because I could never imagine making $1 million at once, but I thought if I could break it out into little things that I could relate to, and certainly that was part of it, was how could I relate to being financially free one day? I mean, that was back when I thought if I made $1,000 a month, I was balling, right?
Yeah.
And the other one was on that same road. I used to see this guy in a Mercedes, old convertible red Mercedes. He had long flowing silver hair. He looked old to me, but he's probably 50, 55, 60, I don't know. And I thought, that guy looks like an asshole. And I used to see him go to work, but I never saw him come back. And so I ended up relating to myself saying, well, one day, if that guy can do it, maybe I can too. I want to be an asshole just like him. Like if he can do it. But what makes him different was that he always went to work but never came back. So my imagination was he worked really hard. So he was working late, long hours, and that's what afforded him that car. And that was also relatable. So it was sort of that $1 at a time, work hard. And it was pretty much at that point, I really had the burning in me to do something. Again, I didn't know what, I didn't know how.
Where did you source your information? Because I think, now young guys and girls growing up, we've got YouTube. There's of course there's plenty of books, but there's YouTube, there's podcasts, there's access to the entire world. Whereas back in the day, if your parents weren't dialed into business and you didn't have immediate family members or maybe your friends' parents that were dialed into business, and business was something that you identified that you needed to have a degree of freedom, like, where did you go?
Mine was probably driven from hunger, as in I wanted something more really badly. And I didn't like anybody saying I couldn't do it. The problem that I had when I was younger, though, was, and I've come up with a saying for this, the difference between dreams and fantasy is reality. And I would borderline fantasy because nobody else could see it. So I knew one day I would do it. That's the way I felt. But I'd get shot down. You're a liar. You're full of shit. You don't have any education. How in the fuck are you going to do any of this? that was my whole childhood. It was always negative, and thank goodness I was able to spend a few years back with my grandparents during my middle school years.
Yep. So teenage years.
Yeah, about 2.5 years. They were both teachers in middle school, and my grandfather stayed on another year and didn't retire to see me through it. Then I had to go back up and stay with my mother and my stepfather, and that was what I was trying to escape. It was mentally really bad. In fact, my brother had left years before because of it, and it kind of went to me, when you're the only one there. And I mean, my nicknames as a kid from my grandmother was Little Shit and Mr. Devastation. So I would do anything at least 3 times. I'm lucky to probably still be here. I was Batman and flew out of a window in a 2-story building, and was concussed and went to the hospital. And of course, the doctor says it's not Batman that flies, it's Superman. And I was like, oh, that's where I went wrong. That's the mentality I had, that I would try anything. And my grandparents, especially my grandfather, I think was able to harness a little bit of that at a young age and say there's consequences to that sort of thought.
Mm.
Being naive, it's not a power tool or weapon. It's just being stupid. And it took me a long time to realize that one too. I don't think most men grow up until they're 40 or 50 anyway. So, I've achieved adulthood finally. But back then, I thought anything was possible, anything, and nothing could stop me. So at 14 and a half, I ran away from my home. In fact, unfortunately, my stepfather was quite a horrible man. And I told my mom, let's go. And she said, no, I'll pack your bag. You'll be here the rest of my life, and you'll be gone soon. And then that's what happened. I left school shortly before that. So I used to get picked on, beaten up, bruises all over my body. Because I'd tell the big guy to go fuck himself, wouldn't I? I had a big mouth, and it was passionate. I definitely back then I felt like I could be a good student with my grandparents because I had a good household, and I couldn't be a good student and learn under any other circumstances. I needed that guidance and that support. And without it, I was reckless. So my childhood helped form who I am today through the bad, through the ugly, and definitely through the good. There's a lot of good that came from that. The big one, where did it come from? It come from the hard knocks. And that's typical, I think, of entrepreneurialism too, right? You don't get too many entrepreneurs that had a silver spoon in their mouth because they're not hungry enough. If you're not hungry, good fucking luck.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. The whole concept around being naive is an interesting one, because sometimes being that delusional confidence and backing of yourself is the only thing that gets you through all the naysayers, which is naivety.
It's good to be naive sometimes, but not when it comes to important things. Being blind to things that are important through choice, it's no good. It took me a long time, I think, to realize that one too, that, due diligence is important in most things. I've been very lucky at the same time and very blessed. I get here, car accident, but that was the thing that led into everything. So, I mean, I wasn't driving, by the way, so I wasn't naive about that. But some things happen that are really bad, and you think, why is this happening? And then some things happen really good, and they actually end up not being good. At the time, they seem good. And pretty much from that 12-year-old young boy to me leaving the house, getting a job at 15 and a half, working till I was 17 and joining the Navy as a 17-year-old. Until that, I didn't think much of myself, to be honest. If people were laughing over in the corner, I thought it was at me. I was naive in that too, that I thought they were laughing at me, but they were probably just laughing. But that's where I'd gone in my life.
And is that like a self-esteem thing stemming from was it Mr. Devastation?
Yeah, look, I was Mr. Devastation because if I could burn it down or, I had fun. I used to take bullets and hit them with a hammer at a target because I couldn't get into the weapons. And my grandfather caught me one day. I was like, "What are you doing?" And he showed me the consequence by shooting a watermelon. And I would have kind of went, "Oh, shit." I remember, although it's very vague because I was only 12, I remember the instance where I went, "Oh, no." But my grandfather was good enough to take me out with a .22 and show me how to shoot it instead of saying, "You can't ever do this and you're an idiot." Instead, he made sure I wasn't naive because he knew that was a smarter way of teaching me because he knew I'd end up getting into it. So I think that I was definitely naive about my dreams. I still thought at that point, thank God I had it.
Yeah.
I still thought that one day I would have it. I never stopped dreaming, not once. But my self-esteem, took a beating because, when you're the one picked on all the time, and then you go home and you're abused to whatever degree, sadness is still sadness. The want for love is still the want for love. It doesn't matter how you got there. And I got there. I starved for love. And so, the dreams probably became fantasy sometimes. Maybe I did lie to myself when I was younger a little bit, because I wanted to put myself up that one day I could be Superman. I could fly, right? And nobody else was doing it. So I thought, I've got to pump myself up. And, that childhood was something that I'm glad I went through now that I look back at it, but still hard. I mean, nobody wants to be the kicking boy, for other people. And said it in jiu-jitsu before. In order to be the hammer, you need to know what it is to be the nail. And I was certainly the fucking nail, no doubt about it. My childhood hardened me, but didn't create a callous person. I still love loving. I still enjoy life. And still, I got through it. And maybe that's where passion describes best. It's, for me at least, in my life, the passion, the belief in myself got me through the bad times. It's not there for the good times. It's there for when everything's fucking up in your life and you think why, and then you remember why, and then you go, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to own this. I don't know how, but I'm going to own it.
It's so fascinating because it's as if that passion and that ability to dream you were born with, or was there someone that you saw had more, or was treated differently, or told you could be someone, or was it just something that was innate and you were just like, or was it a movie? Was there someone in the movie that you were like?
I think a lot of it was innate.
Yeah,
I don't remember not thinking this way.
Isn't that fascinating?
It is. And my beautiful wife had told me over here many a time, nobody sees what you see. Shut your face, Stop telling everybody. Because one, they don't see it, so they're going to think you're bullshitting. Or it's a real good idea and they'll take it from you. And it took me a while to realize that, yeah, okay, as an adult even, I wasn't that kid anymore. I had to protect myself and protect what I was doing, but also protect who I was. And I think that's probably what I did wrong when I was young, not realizing. I was talking about all this amazing stuff I was going to do. Nothing was impossible. Nothing. And I'd get shot down for that or picked on for that or shut down. And that fire inside me never got shut down. Thank goodness. It never got put out. That inner soul said, fuck all of you. In fact, if anything, it probably just stoked the fire, to be honest with you. It was the wrong way. When I came to Australia, I really made the American dream come true here, to be honest with you. But I think America also gives you that. Money will make everything better. They just don't tell you on the other side that it actually can make things worse. More of everything is more of everything. It's more stress. It's more tears. More stress on your family, your partner, your kids.
More good and more bad.
Sacrifice. It is. And that isn't, pull out a violin and cry for me. I mean, now I'm successful. Great. But there was years there where I was literally underneath, the table or the bench in the coffee roastery crying, what the fuck am I doing? But the passion turned on and said, you know why. It's like a conversation with yourself. You're like, really? Yeah, it's going to work out. Fuck, you don't know anything. It's just shit. But that good side would always win and say, keep going. I developed a saying for it: be a stayer, not a player.
Yep.
So I tended to talk a lot. I brought that back in, and then I started to just
doing, not talking.
That first 25 years of my life was really about finding myself. And that was when I came here. I came here in my 25th year.
So you joined, how old were you when you joined the Navy?
I was 17.
Yep.
The person I was living with was a friend of my brother when they were going to school, and he had just graduated the year before. He heard about my troubles, and he said, you have a place here to stay for free, but you got to go find a job. Now, in Oregon at the time, you had to be 16 to work. And I went out and grabbed this gurney off of a guy in front of a old Taco Del or Del Taco. He was cleaning off, and they're going to make it into a taco time. Had a big banner saying, coming soon, taco time. And I looked at him and I said, you look too important to be doing this. And that was my first job. I literally took it from him, didn't know how he was going to pay me. He went inside. About a day later, I went inside. Everything's clean. How about the roof? Got up on the roof, cleaned the whole building. About another day, went inside, helped him start to clean. Went into a freezer. It was all off, and there was maggots coming out of the old food. And I was just like, what? Went out, I was like, that's disgusting. And he goes, I got it. Go do something else. And then about a week went by, and I said, look, I need a job permanently. And he goes, okay. Show up to the orientation, and I did. And then on the grand opening, who walked through the door is the owner of Taco Time. This guy. This guy walks through the door. I just remember because he had a gorgeous daughter. I was like, damn. And thinking, he's willing to do anything. So when you talk about who did I learn from? I learned from everybody. I call it the river of knowledge. If you got a better way, mine's out, yours is in. And really, that river of knowledge is a culmination of everyone and their best. I have no ego when it comes to being bettered. Show me a better way and I'll do it. Show me a better way and I'll absolutely do it. And sometimes you don't need any more than that, so I don't look there anymore. If I've got something that's really good and it's working, sometimes you can try too hard to make everything perfect. Yeah. But for me, I think I'm a closet mathematician. 95% is good as calculus. As long as I'm close, I'll get on to the next thing where it's failing. So,
wow, it's that's a great example. I think kids these days don't understand that they've got to prove themselves first and be willing to do that for nothing.
Look,
times have changed.
When you hear about entrepreneurs, so entrepreneur, the first time I heard it, I'd been in the Navy. I got out of the Navy, and they taught me to do two things, and one of them I couldn't do anymore, and the other one was cleaning. So when you weren't doing your 12-hour on, you didn't just go to bed. You usually, especially because I was low on the totem pole, I'd be cleaning, the barracks, or I used to love polishing floors in front of the CO's office to where it was glass, And when I got back, I thought, well, I was working as a waiter. Thought my first business, I'll try cleaning. And I'm in cleaning this guy's office on a weekend, and he happens to be there. His name's Gianni Origo. He had this clothing store, and he was full of life. Like I'd never seen this sort of, brash and confident just he knew what he was doing, and everybody knew it just by looking at him. And he sat down and he said, "You want a water or something to drink? Sit down with me for a second." I was like, "Okay." I sat down with him. And about 5 minutes in the conversation, he looked at me and said, "You're an entrepreneur." And I was like, "That sounds kind of French. You coming on to me? Like, entrepreneur what?" He goes, "You're an entrepreneur and you don't even know it." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "Somebody who believes in themselves and something they want out of their life and are willing to do anything to get it. And it's something new. It's something different. Entrepreneurialism isn't a business person. You can have academia and be a business person and be very successful at it. An entrepreneur is somebody who's, willing to go out there and create something out of nothing."
Mm.
And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." Yeah. So the first time I heard it was then.
So you're in Eugene.
Yeah. Went back to Eugene after the Navy.
Yeah.
And I, from that, realized I could do something more. Even in the Navy, I mean, the good part about the Navy is it taught me not to be naive. It wasn't the Boy Scouts; it was serious. Most of the people I saw die, they died from either friendly fire or they died from accidents.
Mm.
And I thought, wow. Again, that word naive, right? But it can have dire consequences. And I'm very tentative because of that, but then I'm a bull. So if I don't know how to do something, I won't go out and do it, or I'll find somebody better to do it. Not because I'm afraid of doing it. One, I might lack the time to be able to do it sufficiently in the time I need it done, or two, it doesn't interest me. But the big one is I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to hurt anybody else. So that's with most things. That's money, and that's also physically doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You go out there and you try to be Batman, and you should have been Superman, and things can go wrong.
Yeah, you're walking down an alley and all of a sudden you run into Jason.
Yeah, yeah, yep. That's my hammer.
Yeah. Wow. So where did coffee begin? So because there's an interesting competing party that kind of runs in parallel to the Zarraffa's brand in the US, which was based out of Seattle.
Yep.
Some people might know the name of that brand.
Well, Starbucks. It's okay. I'm not afraid of them. I was never afraid of them. I was a car operator in Seattle. So this same Gianni Arrigo, sliding doors, right? He says to me, "You need to come up, give up this business." And I was already thinking of it because I couldn't find anybody. The workers' compensation was high. I was cleaning windows and carpets correctly, and you get somebody to do it, and they do a half-assed job. I kind of realized it was a no future sort of business for me.
Yeah.
And so he said, "Come up to Seattle and help me sell advertising on the movie screens like Val Morgan here." So it was in the intermission time.
Yep.
I was like, okay. And so I'm up in Seattle. He hands me these contracts, shows me how to fill them out, and he goes, "All right, off you go." And then the first day I got 5 contracts signed. Now, Seattle, Starbucks, I never thought Starbucks was that was corporate America. That was
so
they
were established then.
Oh yeah, they were
fully already.
I think at the time they had around 200 stores in the early 90s.
Yeah, wow.
And they were going public at that point. It was right around that time they went public or were going public. That was the early 90s, I think about 92, maybe late 91 that I went up to Seattle. But that was something I never at the time thought. It's just huge, right?
Yeah.
200 stores, let alone what they have now.
Yeah.
For me, I didn't even know coffee by then. So I hated coffee because my nan used to make instant. I thought it was horrible. So I wasn't drinking coffee at that point. And when I was selling advertising, I was up in northern Seattle in a place called Everett. And this gentleman at a Burger Master, so it was like drive-in burgers and fries and so on. So you'd drive in and they'd come out, get your order. And It's like the old roller skate days. It was crazy. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
still, it's like the 60s and 70s reborn.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to sign the whole of Seattle. So it was like $5,000 a month at the time. It was a $60,000 contract, which was pretty big.
Yeah.
And he goes, I want to celebrate. Do you like coffee? And I'm like, no, I hate coffee. He goes, Matt, I just bought this beautiful automatic coffee machine. Back then they were called Accordos, and they literally had the syrups and sauce and everything would go in automatically. And he goes, you're going to have one. Do you like chocolate? Yeah, I love chocolate. So he made me a mocha.
Mm.
And I had a sip and I went, that's not fucking coffee. That's awesome. That tastes so good.
Yeah.
Literally from that meeting, I got in the car. I was thinking, coffee actually tastes good. Wow. I went to fill up at a petrol station. Look at me being Australian now, not a gasoline station. I went to a petrol station and I said, I'm ready to pay because it was in Washington. It was pump like over here. You had to pump and then go in and pay. I wanted to pay. I had to get going. And this guy goes, I'll be right with you. He's making coffee. And I look up at the board, go back to when I was 12. I can make $1 million if I do it $1 at a time. I looked up on the board and a short latte was $1. And then he calls out 2 double tall lattes. And I looked at the petrol pumps and I looked at the coffee board. And the first thing that popped in my mind is the coffee is more important than the petrol. Back then we didn't have, we didn't have anything. You couldn't get online. The phones were big suitcases, basically. And, the big Motorola's when they first came out were like bricks. And you had to have money. You're a businessman. I had a pager, the old one that told you the number and call them back, not even the one that you could text with, right? So I looked at that board and I thought, this is it. And I'd had another saying that really fit with it. I can imagine making $1,000. Anybody can, even now. I mean, $1,000 isn't not a little bit. $1,000 is still a decent amount of money. And I thought, it takes thousands of dollars to make tens of thousands, to make hundreds of thousands, to make millions. And with millions, I can do anything. So it was like a journey that I knew I could do. I look up at the board. I feel this overwhelming feeling. And I call my girlfriend at the time. And I say, what do you do again? And she goes, I'm in the coffee business. I've got an espresso cart called Espresso Lanes in the middle of Bellevue, Washington. I'm like, are you there now? She's like, yep, I'm coming right now. And she loved a guy in Alaska named Bob that she was childhood sweethearts with. And I said, I've got a great idea. You teach me everything you know about coffee, and we'll call Bob. You're going to sell. I'm going to help you sell. And you're going to go up and you're going to marry Bob and start a coffee business up there. And she goes, okay. I met Bob, 6'5", big, he looks down at me and goes, thanks. Like, she was older. She was 38.
Right.
I was 23,
right.
22 at the time. So,
right.
Yeah, it was fun. It was a fun, but again, sliding door.
Yeah.
I look back at that and I think, and they were busy. They had a 5 group. They used to make 5 groups back then. So there's 5 portafilters on this big machine in the middle of this old gasoline station underneath the roof. And you had these gorgeous girls that would go to the car. So it was like a drive-through.
Yeah.
They got to the car. What would you like today, Sam? Oh, I'd like a double tall latte. Okay. And they'd make it for you, charge you, and then you'd go off on this busy road. And I remember asking her how much she did the first time, and it blew me away. $14,000 a month, which, when you're doing $1 at a time, so that's 14,000 coffees if it was a short beverage.
Was this, this wasn't at the petrol station. This was at the coffee.
This was after. Sorry, yeah. So I've gone from the petrol station, northern Seattle.
Yep.
Burgermaster. This guy gives me the coffee.
Yep.
I go to the petrol station to fill up.
Yep.
I see my destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Because with my attitude, I thought, I can do what he just did. I mean, the guy seemed boring.
Yeah.
He was probably just an attendant. Probably didn't even own the place. But he loved it. You could see he loved that, and the petrol was second. And I thought, in my mind at least, that's the way it rolled.
Yeah.
Nobody could tell me any different. Coffee's bigger than, now I found out later that coffee's second largest traded commodity, only to oil. So I wasn't too far off that, you know. And in our lifetimes, I believe it'll become the biggest, because eventually, you know, the fossil fuels will go at some point. Maybe not in our lifetime, but it certainly looks that way, right? So for me, I've gone within an afternoon. I've signed a big deal, got introduced to coffee, realized my dream wasn't a fantasy, went to the coffee cart, made a proposition to have this thing happen. And within a month, I had my own espresso cart after that.
It's kind of like on Google Maps when you've typed in the destination, but the route hasn't popped up yet.
Yeah.
And then suddenly the blue little route goes click, and you're like, I've now got the vehicle and the route to get to the dream.
Yeah. The funny part about it is that AB, you know, I'm at a point A, I want to get point B. Most people think it's a straight line. And sometimes it can go backwards, but you're still moving forward. People get discouraged when they go backwards, but I've gone backwards. I call myself the mistake maker more than I do an entrepreneur, because I'm willing to make mistakes, just none that will kill me or put me in financial ruin. But I have to be willing to pull the trigger at some point.
Yep.
And so I've gone all the way over here and then finally got to point B.
Mm.
The straight line stuff, it's winning the lottery.
Yep.
But you still need to know how to, you know, take care of your money.
Mm-hmm.
So the good part is, if I had $1 million when I started Zarraffa's, I would have made $1 million mistake. I probably would have been financially ruined. The good part is, you know, when I finally started that business from scratch, any business from scratch, hard-earned money, I never wanted to do it again, because I know how hard it was, you know, in the beginning days. Like, you know, $300 bill comes through and you freak out. Now it's a $300,000 bill and you go, oh yeah, it's weird, you know.
The relativity, I guess.
The relativity. Yeah. But,
yeah,
you know, you go back to that point A to point B, most people want it right now. Go back to what you said. Today's youth, the only thing is they don't realize the sacrifice and the commitment you need. Dana White says it really well. You have to be a savage. My boys, my kids, I'm teaching them to be savages. Now, not from the point of view of being mean to anybody.
No, of course not.
But to be hungry for whatever they want in life. They don't have to want money, but if they want anything good in their life, they have to want it, because nobody's going to give it to them. You know, the whole everybody gets a ribbon thing.
The participation award.
And it's not about being mean to the other kid. I mean, I've done so many jiu-jitsu comps where I was on the podium. I was just happy to be on the podium. You know, I've won a few times when I was a white belt and no-gi. You know, I lost my MMA fight, didn't get to fight the second time at all because it got canceled, which was even worse. You know, I've been on the podium, but second, so many times, but I still felt great because I knew how hard it was.
Yes.
You know, there was one I went to and they didn't have any, they had this little tiny beanie and a cap. And I'd just gone against this crazed, you know, I went to a different weight category, this crazed guy going, oh my God, he's on the side going, I'm going to kill you, basically. I end up winning. My lips are purple. And then I get this fucking little beanie. I'm like, give me a trophy, you know, because I fought through it, because I went through something hard. So this isn't about, you know, being mean or cruel to today's youth. This is about saying, be hungry for something. You can be a volunteer, but be the best you can be at that, because we need them. We need people that, I'm definitely a social man, not a socialist. I want everybody to have basic everything. I do. And I don't mind making more money and paying more tax for that. The roads, you know, medical, or oldies being taken care of, especially if they, you know, help build this country or defend this country. I don't mind. I'll make more money. How much do you need? But you want a nicer car? You want a nicer house? Go fucking work for it. So yeah, the youth today, not all of them. My only suggestion for them is don't fall into the line of your parents, your grandparents. Find your own line. Because a lot of times what has happened unknowingly is your parents have led you down this garden path. Unknowingly. For me, I was the kicking boy. So it made me fire up, right? Thank God I didn't go, I'm nothing, I'll never be anything. It took me a long time mentally to get out of the whole, I'm picked on, but I realized everybody gets picked on. Everybody's full of sadness. I just felt, a bit deeper sadness when I was younger, which allowed me not to have those people around me when I was older. So the youth of today, I think how smart they are automatically, especially when it comes to being on computers. I think that's great, but easy street doesn't exist. Eventually, you'll pay a price as well. I paid a price. I made my wife pay a price. I took her through entrepreneurial hell. If you're not willing to take and put up your soul, then you'll never be number one. You'll never have a chance of being on the podium. And you'll just get a ribbon, and the ribbon, it's not good enough. It'll never fulfill you. It'll never fulfill you. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's like outcome without proper output isn't the way the world works. Like the tribe wasn't fed if you didn't actually catch the beast and kill the beast. So it's like participation trophies, it's the wrong wiring to the youth that are developing their brain.
Well, I can tell you right now, it's like the mat. You get on the mat with me and we're rolling for fun. We'll roll for fun. You tap me out all you want. But you go to a comp with me and I want that shiny fucking trophy and you're in my way, you're going to tap. I want it.
Kamor Kent.
Yeah. Look, I think that, the attitude, you also need the backup behind it. So my first fight, I puffed out, won the first round 10-8, the second round. I remember sitting down.
MMA or jiu-jitsu?
MMA.
Yeah.
And my coach looked at me and he went, how you going? I said, you see the first round? He said, yeah. I said, I'm fucked. I'm so done. Because you got to get back out there. And I go, oh no. And I was 33. The guy I think was 25 I was fighting against. And about halfway through the round, he check hooked me. I'm on the ground. And he'd black and blued my leg anyway, was ready to come down. And the ref stopped it, thank goodness. I mean, I was done. And I learned a lot about myself that day. So to lose is to learn something about yourself. To win is to teach someone else that same lesson.
Only if your output was at 100%. Look, losing without that being at 100%, that's the problem.
Well, the problem is I wasn't fit enough. So you can have all the brains in the world, but if you don't back it up with the tools you need, you're going to be in trouble too. You can think anything, but you have to put the work in. So for me, for the next fight, which didn't end up happening, that bikey, stabby shooting thing at the Royal Pines many, many years ago, you're probably, it was 2006. So I waited for 3 years, trained for 8 months, 3 months, fight training, gave up everything. I was under fight weight. I was killing it. I was fit. I thought, I'm not going to puff out. I had the heart. So who knew? Maybe I got knocked out, choked. And I definitely was a fighter. Like if I got in the cage, I didn't want to see no ref. Knock me out, knock you out, choke. I was one of those guys, I'll put it all in. But I knew I could now. But I didn't get that chance. And that was also really bad, in life, to be let down, to go through something. And anybody in sports would know this, especially at a high level when they're making it for their living. And they get a fight taken away from them, whether it's an injury, whether the other person gets injured, whether it gets canceled. It's actually worse than fighting and getting beaten.
Yep.
It's the oddest thing. I never got to do it again. I knew that was it. For me, it was a fun thing. It was a hobby. I didn't even get paid. I just wanted to jump in and bang, and test myself.
Yeah.
And work out what else I was doing wrong. And that's, again, in life and business when you're young, you got to test yourself. You got to be willing to fall down. You got to be willing to be last. You have to be willing to make mistakes. And I used to think it was bad. I thought I have to always achieve. I have to be the best. But then I soon realized after millions of dollars worth of mistakes and doing the wrong thing, that was just a part of doing business. It was just investing in my schooling. My schooling was really, again, that hard knocks of life,
Yeah.
making mistakes. So I got my, my master's in business from the streets, not from the schooling. And I still paid though. I probably paid more. I probably paid more than most of the people who went to school.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. So let's loop back to you're now in Seattle and you're running your own coffee cart.
Yeah.
And that's just to again set the scene. How old are you now, roughly?
So I was 22.
22. Wow.
It was. So I've been in the industry for 33 years this February. Yeah. It's I can't, it feels like a lifetime ago. I was in Seattle, a place called Bellevue. I'd gone into this place to negotiate the cart, being out the front of this red apple, which is like an IGA over here.
I mean, you're going to buy it? Were you going to buy the cart or how's it going to work?
I got one of the guys that I was selling advertising to put $5,000 in.
Yep.
And because I didn't have any
as a loan
credit,
or as
a loan.
Yep.
Equity, but as a loan.
Yep.
So I didn't have to pay back right away. It was a part of the whole,
Yep.
So the whole deal. But I went in to this guy and Mike Rose, he owned that red apple, but he also owned a couple others. And he was quite flat, very, hi, how are you? Very stone-faced, no personality. Couldn't read him. I remember going in and saying, I want to put an espresso cart out the front. And he goes, we already have an espresso machine in the deli. And I was like, oh, okay. And all right, well, thanks. Anyway, I went to the deli to get a chicken. And this lady was trying to make, it is a single group, trying to make coffee. And she wasn't selling chickens. And I went right back into Mike Rose. Can I show you something? I've just seen it. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but come out and see this. And we sat there and watched her fumble, try to make all these coffees. And she wasn't getting the deli business through. I said, it's costing you more money. You're not set up right.
She was distracted.
I'll be out the front, give me a 3-year sublease, and I'll bring customers here more because of my personality. I will. And he went, you have to buy my espresso machine. Whatever it was worth, it was $500 or $1,000. I was like, okay. And a month later, that's when the espresso cart opened. And it was hard. It was so hard. My first customer, Ron Routh, double grande, cool so we can drink it, extra frothy cappuccino. And then on the way back out, he would want one a little bit hotter and one for his wife, Dakota, a single tall hazelnut latte on skinny.
That, first of all, those are two wild coffee orders.
Well, it sticks. I mean, Ron, unfortunately, I tried to find him when I was going through my cancer. I was quite emotional. I thought there's a few things I wanted to do if I didn't make it. Because there was a point where I didn't, you just don't know. And I certainly was seeing that door open up. And I thought, what are the things I want to do? And I went a bit hypomania. My poor wife, she basically, was worried about me and said, please just stop. Because I was trying to get her dream car. And, I paid off the house, which isn't a bad thing, and I just tried to get everything right in order because I thought, what if I don't make it? And anyway, I tried to find Ron. I couldn't find him. Anyway, I found this lady. I mean, Dakota's such a different name. She was in Florida. So from Seattle, she moved to Florida, got remarried. And on the phone, she left a message because she didn't get directly in touch with me. And she said, Kenton, so good to hear you've done well. Ron would be so happy to unfortunately passed away a few years ago of cancer. He was more than just a customer. I really, I don't know, that cart mentality. I knew him for so long, for 3 years every day. His 50th birthday was the day I opened. And he was eager the week before, Dakota said, to come and help me open, push the cart out, because he thought this is going to be great. I've got an espresso cart right next to my, my house. Anyway, it matters. arm's length relationship forever. I mean, I remembered most people's drinks and certainly their names after not too long, because all I had was service and product. And I brought that forward for sure. That's one of the biggest things we try to still do today. So we're not becoming corporate. We still have feeling. We still care. You're not just a number. But yeah, when I found out he died, nothing's forever either, right? So such a long time ago, and still really meant a lot to me. Some of my best customers, actually, I still remember. And why shouldn't I? And I think they'd still remember me too, because it's like going to your barber, but you're going every day. You have that little chit chat. It's always good.
Cart mentality. That's
espresso
quite an
cart
interesting
mentality.
one. Yeah.
Well, when all you have is you and the product, you better do it damn well. And that's what I did. In fact, on those espresso carts, so I started the first one in Seattle in Bellevue. And then I started another one. And then I got one going and sold it. And then I got a third one going, which was a mistake. It took way too much capital, way too much of my time. I should have known better too, because my first cart, that same gentleman, Ron Routh, and a lady named Kate, that first 3 months on the first espresso cart, I woke up and went, oh shit, it's light. I wasn't there. And the cart was supposed to be open. I've got my car, raced down there, and it's out still. And I'm going, oh my God, I am delusional. I've left it out. Because you have to push it inside to the commissary, clean it up, and it's for its safety too, right? Anyway, there's Ron, Routh, and Kate on a line. And Kate gives Ron some money. I'm like, what are you doing here, and what's that for? And I lost the bet. We knew you weren't going to make it one of these days, so we've been waiting. I'm your first employee, Kate. And I'm not fucking it up too bad, I don't think, basically. And everybody's like, she'll be fine. And Ron and her had pushed my coffee cart out. It's probably why I'm so emotional, because my customers, are they customers? Are they friends? They were certainly more than just customers. They push my business out. I didn't ask them to. Did I have that effect on them? Did the industry, bring us together that close where we could be friends unknowingly, where somebody would do that for me? They told me to go back to bed, get a rest, be there on Monday, and I could start to show Kate what I was doing and how I did it. She promised to try not to screw it all up. But those second and third cart, I'm ambitious. Oh, I'm going to have more. And by the third one, 4 years into it, I got told, 3 years into it. So I had a 3-year sublease on the first one.
So you're about 25?
Yeah, I was just before I was 25. So it was early 92, then it was 95, like early 95, so about January, February. But it was before that, in 94, that Mike Rose called me in and he goes, I got good and bad news. The good news, I'm going golfing the rest of my life. The bad news is IGA just purchased me out, and they're not going to renew your subleases. And they'll give you a couple grand for each cart if you want. And I was just like, what? I remember crying. I cried when I left the Navy. I got medically discharged. Got really hurt. And I cried then too. Because when I was in the Navy, I thought that was my life. This is it. And I was like, I can't believe I'm out. 6 months later, the Gulf War happens and 2 of my mates get killed in friendly fire. They're both special forces. I got the news back within 6 months, and I thought, okay, maybe I shouldn't cry because I'm still here. And this one, I started crying in his office. I just thought, what am I going to do now? I've got no money. I'm back to the beginning, right? I've just literally lost everything. I mean, literally, I had to pay off my first investor, which he barely got his money back. And I had to pay off the debt that I had with the bank at that point, which again wasn't very much. So I walked away from Seattle, just about walked away from Seattle with nothing. I walked away with the information. That was one of the things I realized. You don't have to go back to zero. But at that point, it felt like that. I thought, oh my God. But before I handed over the last cart, the week that I was ready to hand over the last cart, 2 gentlemen from Australia walked by. And I said, what are you doing passing the best coffee in the world? And they're like, oh, really? I said, 2 double tall mochas with whipped cream. I make my whipped cream fresh. You're going to love it. They came back for the next week. And on the 7th day, the general manager handed me a card and said, Kenton, my name's Philip Janilio. We'd like you to come to Australia one day. Are you up for that? And I said, well, let me look at my calendar here. As a matter of fact, because I didn't tell them everything was gone.
So you knew that at that point?
Oh, yeah. I knew I was done. This was the last week.
Right.
I had a bus trip, the shame train. I was on the bus, the Greyhound, on the way to Southern Oregon to be with my grandparents. And I got this card given to me for a retail food group. And it's the only thing they've done that's good since. But anyway, I believe, again, destiny. I mean, the last week, 2 Australian guys. I'm going to cry again. I can't believe it. My life was shit at that point. Up and down and roller coaster ride. And, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Again, I'm almost there. And then I'm broke. And I got knowledge. And I still have the passion. I don't know how. But I go down and I stay with my grandparents after I hand it over and wait for them to call. And I was out fossicking for gold and dredging for gold in the Illinois River and growing my hair out when I had hair. And I was on food stamps to the dole. And I remember my grandmother saying after a couple of months, are you going to go to Australia? I mean, I was in Southern Oregon. I was smoking dope and living with my nanas, getting fed every day. And I was like, this isn't too bad. Anyway, I said, all right. So I gave a call. I said, hey, Phil. He's like, yes, Kenton. I said, I've got 5 job offers. You need to decide. I can't, I've had a bit of a sabbatical, little white lie there. I was basically on my ass, literally. And I mean, standing at my nana's, come on, And I said, you need to decide. I need it now, or I've got to choose. I really want to come over to Australia, but it's up to you. He had a ticket for me that afternoon to come the next day.
Alrighty, guys, we're going to take a really quick break from today's episode to talk to you about our sponsor, Kingfishers Bend Farm. At the beginning of this year, I made a decision that I wanted to make 2025 my best year yet, and I knew my health needed to be on point for me to do that. And so, that's great sleep, that's exercising regularly. I'm not drinking any alcohol this year, but it also means fueling my body with the highest quality, most nutrient-dense food I can to put me in the best position to perform highly. And that's why I'm working with Kingfishers Bend Farm. Kingfishers Bend Farm are a local family-owned farm from down in northern New South Wales. They put a lot of love into what they do. They raise paddock-to-plate beef. And as you can see here, we've got plenty of different cuts. We've got, obviously steaks. I mean, the marbling on that is just sensational. Have a look at that. Beef ribs. We've got bones for bone marrow. We're going to cook some bone marrow up. We've got beef mince, we've got ground beef, we've got sausages, we've got the whole lot here. This is actually a quarter beast on the table right in front of me, which is pretty cool. You can order a quarter beast, a half beast, or a full beast at any point in time. And fortunately for everyone who watches this show, Kingfishers Bend Farm have been incredibly generous. They're offering $250 off everybody's first order. So whether you want to buy a quarter beast, a half beast, or a full beast, they're offering $250 off your first order. To claim the offer, just head to kingfishersfarm.store and include Sam Hope as the code in your checkout. And look, just before we get back to the episode, the way I look at these things is if you're driving a McLaren and you're wanting to get the highest performance from that supercar as possible, you're not putting E10 or 91 in the vehicle. You're putting the most highest octane petroleum that you can possibly get your hands on. And I don't think it's any different with our bodies. If we're wanting to perform at the highest possible levels and be sharp in meetings, walking into a room where people just go, wow, that guy's on. What's that guy on? What's he taking? We've got to fuel our bodies with the best possible nutrient-dense food. And that's why I'm so happy to be working with Kingfishers Bend Farm. Claim the offer, kingfishersfarm.store. Use code SAMHOPE at checkout. And I look forward to getting back to this episode. Wow.
The next day. And so I got on a plane and went via San Francisco to get my passport stamped. Flew out of LA. And on October 1st of 1995, I arrived here in the beautiful Gold Coast. Actually, it was Brisbane. We flew into Brisbane, and on the way here, it was still one lane each way. And I said to the guy driving me here, where are you taking me? I mean, it was like bumfuck Egypt back then, right? Like there was literally one lane each way. If you all remember that. You remember that? Were you a kid, like driving up? Were you born in 95?
Matt, in 1995, I was -7.
Okay, so it was a different world back then. And actually, I miss that Gold Coast. I miss that. It was a small, I think it was 150,000 people or 160. Wow. It wasn't very many people here. It hadn't seen what it has seen today. Like it definitely was a coastal beach town, and I loved it. I thought I'd arrived in paradise. I went down to the beach and saw chicks with no bikinis on. I was like, oh, I'm home. I mean, I dreamt about coming here, So the same guy, Ryan Delmeter, was one of the nephews of the director of Retail Food Group. He came that afternoon to pick me up, take me out for dinner. I'm thinking, this is great. I watched AFL. I was like, what the fuck is this sport?
Would have been the Brisbane Bears then.
Oh, man, I don't remember. I was like, I'd never seen it before. I still hadn't seen a kangaroo, of course, because you think I'm going to see a kangaroo. I hadn't seen a kangaroo, but I saw this weird sport I'd never seen before in my life, which, by the way, I think is one of the greatest live spectacles in the world. Now I've come to, love it.
We can certainly agree on that.
Oh, it's live. It's right there with any sport, but certainly I think it's the best live, especially if you've got a close one. But and I watched Dick Johnson and Brock. What's his? Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, they were in BMWs and they had the Vision on them, and they were doing Bathurst. It was on a Sunday, October 1st, 1995, Sunday. So I watched Bathurst. I see this AFL game. I'm thinking, you're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. And I've walked the beach, and I've seen the sights, and I've smelled there and gone, this is great. Well, Ryan come to pick me up for dinner that night, and he drove across the Gold Coast Highway where Tylana Restaurant used to be. There's no medium strip at that point. I looked to the left, and I said, oh, God, no. Car slammed right into us, T-boned us. The Ford Fairlane was that big, literally. My seatbelt broke. My head went through the side passenger window. And I was pretty much out. I don't think I went totally unconscious, but I was definitely gone. In the ambulance, next thing I know, and thinking, oh shit. I literally was like, my oh God, no was, really? I've come all this way. I didn't know if I was going to, I didn't die, but I looked and I went, it was more like, really? This? Now? On the Monday, I go into the academy to learn how to make donuts and meet some franchisees, and the manager there, Laszlo, he's quite a nice guy, and he could kind of see Monday and then Tuesday. I was just stiff, how the injuries?
Yeah.
I was toughening out. I need this job. I need this job. I've come all this way. This isn't fucking happening. But as the days went on, I couldn't even talk. I was bad, right? Get an American not to talk. It was painful. And Laszlo looked at me, and I was in the yellow pages back then. There were yellow pages. Apparently I'm a boomer. Even though I'm not a boomer, my kids say, if I can't use the phone or I can't, you're a boomer. Fuck that is, but yellow pages, so boomer time. And I look up massages, and Laszlo goes, he comes into the office and he goes, that different massage, that's different. But we went to a place on the weekend called Gold Coast International. I got a really good sports massage. Let me call them. I was like, okay. I didn't even know what he's talking about at the time, that it was a massage parlor. And he wanted me to go to a proper one. So thank God. Thank you, Laszlo.
Yep.
My bad. And I go in there, and about 45 minutes into the massage, I turn over, I look up, and I see this lady, girl at the time. And I think, she's kind of cute. I'm starting to feel better. I'm thinking, geez, she's really good at this massage. Like I was bad. And I'm thinking, okay, I only got an hour. And I said, hey, do you think I can have another half an hour? And she goes, yep. And then I said, oh, can I have another half an hour? And she goes, yep. And then I said, oh, can I? By the third half an hour, I was like really feeling good. And I thought, I'm going to ask this girl out to Friday dinner it's a corporate dinner with all the franchisees that were graduating the academy to go open their franchise stores. I said, they're trying to hook me up with somebody I don't know. And I've gone to the edge of the bed and kind of said, look, she goes, I can't, I got another client, whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. And I said, oh, look, there's this dinner on Friday. You're the best thing to happen to me so far. And they're trying to hook me up with somebody I don't know. Would you like to be my date? It's nothing funny. You know, the people I'm staying with, which was Laszlo and Melissa, I said, look, we'll take her out. And she's like, oh, let me just go ask my boss. So she walks out the door, goes and asks Rhonda, comes back and says, yep. I said, okay. And I've gone up to the door that Friday to pick her up, knocked. She opened the door, and I was like, oh, goddamn. Because, of course, she's in her,
Totally.
gym suit and hair back and no real makeup. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at this glam going, oh, okay. I turned around, and Laszlo's like, punching. I didn't know what that meant either. He's like going, like, okay, you too, buddy. But been punching ever since because she's my wife now.
Wow. You've kind of got the petrol station epiphany moment. You've got the lease change with your coffee carts.
I needed to lose to win.
Yeah.
The nail. I've been the nail a lot of my life.
And the car crash.
And the car crash. Another nail. I think I've built a house with all the nails I put in, I honestly make it happen, and life happens this way, right? It happens this way all the time. We hear it every day. People die. They get in a car accident, become disabled, which is bad if not worse. They got to live with that now, and they got to come through it. For me, I have been absolutely blessed enough to come out of it and still have everything going for me. And I needed everything. I needed it. It was like I'd arrived. So I ended up dating Rach for about the first month, and it was great. She's thinking in her mind, here's this yank, and we go to the Friday dinner, the first date, Ashmore Steak and Seafood. They're not open anymore, which is kind of sad. Because I remember saying, to her, oh, it's Ashmore Steak and Seafood. She goes, oh, like la-di-da. It's like, lobster, half-price lobster. It's like, and for us at the time, it was like, somebody else was paying. And I remember asking her a couple of years later, what did you think of that first date? She goes, because I thought you were so beautiful. I could not believe how beautiful you were. Like, I knew you were pretty, and I was obviously attracted enough to, invite you out, but I didn't think it was a friendly thing. I said, what'd you think of me? And she goes, I thought you were pretty cute too. When you shut up. It's like, fuck. So I was better, right? She thought I was an American, didn't talk. I was just in that much pain. I couldn't say anything. So about a month into it, I was dating her. Everything was really cool, and getting to know her friends, and got to meet her father, who didn't like Americans apparently. And I got told he was pissed out the back. Go meet him. I'm like, I don't want to go meet him if he's mad. He's drinking. He's a bit can't talk. Oh, okay. And he didn't say too much at the time. And the mom was like, "Oh, nice to meet you." And probably thought I was cute. I'm like, "Oh, look at you go, right?" You know, it's my mind anyway. And a month into it, they sent me down to Frankston in Melbourne to help open a BB's Coffee and Bake, train with somebody in Frankston, and then be there to open up a store so I could learn the ropes. So eventually I wanted to go back to America. The idea was they wanted to go back to America with these brands, and they thought, here's a guy that
he's impressionable, young, he's driven, he's hungry, he's got to
learn it and then go over there. You know, that was the idea. I mean, I get it. And I was down there, and I still hadn't gotten paid. They're supposed
at all.
At all. I'd gotten a $500 pocket money from Mr. Chinelio. What is it? Chin-ear-leo. Kenton, here's $500 pocket money. We're trying to work out your visa. I'm like, okay. Naivety. I was on a visitor's visa. So a month in, I'm in Frankston. I'm ready. The morning I was ready to go to the new store and help get everything set up to open up the following week. Philip calls me up and says, Kenton, I have to come and see you. In fact, I'm in the airport in Melbourne right now. I'll be there shortly. Can you just stay at the hotel for me? It's like, oh, okay. He comes, knocks on the door, sits on the end of the bed and says, Kenton, come sit next to me. I'm like, okay. He goes, Kenton, I'm really sorry, but we've screwed up on your immigration. You're not supposed to be working, and we can't pay you anything. And here's a one-way ticket back to LA. I was just like, the things going through my head at that point, I didn't know what to, I was like, are you kidding me? So I was like, well, 2 more months before I can get another visa, right? Yep. Well, just pay me $500, pay me the money you owe me, so I'm not living off her age. I'll call her up and say, look, I know it's not the best circumstances. I move in with you and pressure you, but, And he goes, Kenton, I'm sorry, but frankly, the directors don't think you're worth it. Okay. Well, let's go down and I'll pay the bill for you. Okay. I'm walking behind him. Second story hotel. I'm walking behind him. I told him years later why, because he asked, Kenton, why were you walking behind me? Well, because, Phil, I was going to throw you over the fucking banister. And he starts laughing. You were not. It's like, oh, I was fucking going to throw you over the banister. You do not know who I was at that point. Like I just couldn't believe it again. And I thought, don't shoot the messenger. Don't, he's just here. He's the one that got put to do this. And I started to laugh. He goes, yeah, you started to laugh like Jack Nicholson. You're like, this is funny. This is real funny. It's like, yeah, I remember that. This is pretty scary, hey? And he goes, yeah, it was a bit weird. I was like, yeah, this is real funny. And I tore up the ticket and I threw it in his face. I go, you're going to fucking regret this. And he remembered that too. And he goes, I think we have. Years later. And that wasn't even when Zarraffa is as big as it is now.
Yeah.
It's when we had, I think, 2 stores, Australia Fair and Harbour Town, and a little tiny roastery, And they came back, 2 of them, and apologized. Said, we seriously misunderstood you.
At what point is this when they came back to you?
So
Did you go back?
So if you go 95, I was here in October 1st.
Mm.
Around November, shit hit the fan. I call up Rachel, by the way, from Melbourne, my Frankston hotel, and I'm like, I've got bad news. Yeah. I got no money. I can't work for another 2 months. She goes, well, what's the third bad thing? And I said, well, I'm sure they'll give me the ticket back to LA, but I got to come back up to see you anyway because I got some of my stuff with you. I said, can we give it a year? Maybe I came for you. She's like, oh, yeah. And I went back up. A month later, poor thing, she's like, I can't afford to keep you. And her dad come in and said, I like him. And again, he worked with Tom. He was a stunt coordinator for 45 years. He worked with Tom Cruise and a bunch of other arrogant fucking
Yanks.
Seppos. Remember that word? Seppo. It's a Seppo. Not anymore. But yeah, he came in and he said, I like him. I'll take him down to Sydney, give him some pocket money. And we worked on waterettes. Worked with friends of his on the pyrotechnics and that in the background, the visual effects department. It was cool as heck.
Wow.
He met Jake Lagai, I think, at the time, and a couple of other stars at that point that weren't like stars.
Yeah.
But that never affected me either. I just loved being there. I loved being with Bob and gave us that time and then came back. And it wasn't until January 1st, the lady from immigration called up and said, you can go find a job. And Rachel was pretty worried, up to that point. I went out and I went 3 job interviews, came back. She goes, which one are you taking? I said, all of them. She goes, what? I'll take all of them. How are you going to do that? I said, well, one's nighttime, one's on the weekends, one's during the day. And she used to just hand me a shirt and go, you're going here next, and I'm driving you. Or you're going here next, take a taxi. I was like, okay, 110 hours for the first 18 months. Anyway, so when did they come back? And it was after Australia Fair. Tony Williams, which was one of the other founding directors, came and sat in the first one when we went downstairs. So it was about a year after I started the retail side, probably 1998.
Okay. Yeah, right. So
1998.
three or so years after.
Yeah. He came and he stood up, put out his hand, and he goes, we seriously misunderstood you. And then about another 40 people came and lined up. No word of a lie. And he goes, oh, we seriously misunderstood you. And I was just like, thanks. I'm glad you did. Again, it hurt. It hurt like a nail. I mean, I lost everything, and I came over here and lost everything. And then a month later, I've got less than nothing. I got no hope back in the States. I was wanting to go back to the States. I've got a daughter, a 34-year-old daughter. And I wanted to go back because of that, obviously. And I thought I was going to be over for a couple of years, maybe, then help them take. So my whole idea was to go back. And yeah, it wasn't that, was it?
So how'd you go from working 3 jobs, 110 hours a week for 18 months to Zarraffa's?
Wow. The short version, I said to Rachel about March of 1996, we incorporated Zarraffa's Coffee, Pty Ltd. And I went up to trademark the brand in Brisbane. And I was on the train on the way up, and then I stopped and did all my trademarking. And I was walking back to the train and looking at Brisbane a little bit on the way. It was like Eagle Street and something. I can't remember, but it was just packed. It was lunch hour, and everybody was crossing. And I looked around, and nobody was carrying around takeaway coffee. Could not see one, not one. And I waited for a couple lights, none. And I started mounting the light pole. I was like, fucking yeah! It hasn't happened here yet. I hadn't realized it till that point. I worked in Frankston, I worked around, but I hadn't opened up my eyes. There was no specialty coffee. There was coffee, and in Melbourne, damn good coffee.
How do you discern the two? Specialty and
One's
non-specialty?
cafe, no takeaway. Nobody was doing takeaway. If there were, it was in shitty styrofoam and barely anybody did it.
So specialty is takeaway.
Specialty coffee is actually anything that scores 80 points or better in the coffee industry for the green coffee. It's like wine. So it's the premium coffees around the world. So we're still specialty coffee even though we're bigger.
But there wouldn't be many drive-through specialty coffees in Australia.
Well, back then, there was no specialty coffee. Glory Jeans, Starbucks hadn't arrived here yet. All your locals. I mean, we're going back to where when we went on the way down to Sydney, we stopped at the old servos and they were pulling the steam out of a boiler. There was no espresso attached to it.
Yeah.
They were putting instant in and then putting the froth or the milk on top of that. So it was like a nana coffee.
Yeah.
It was shit. Now, Melbourne, when I went down, I went to Ackland Street and the first bakery, and I was like, oh my God, second bakery, oh my God, third one, I'm like, oh Jesus, you're kidding me. Like Melbourne, their coffee scene, their cafe scene.
Totally different.
World's best still today, I think. Like, it blew me away. When I went to Melbourne, I was like, now this is coffee. I'd never really been, besides Seattle, I'd never really been out there in any other coffee market. And so go back to Brisbane, I'm thinking, it hasn't happened yet. I've called up Rachel and gone, it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't happened yet. What hasn't happened yet? Specialty coffee. We're gonna make the wave. She's like, the wave of what? I'm like, oh, we're gonna do this. And she's just like, we're gonna do what? Like, what? And so July that year, when I was in Sydney previously with Bob, I found a guy that had a small roastery and he was selling his 3 kilo roaster because they had upgraded to a 10 kilo. And I'd worked out a deal with him for $3,000. I'd called up my old roastery in Seattle and said, I'm here now. Can you help me with the blend? And they gave me the blend for Java Gold. In fact, our Java Gold was a gift from them for me because I said, look, you're in Australia, off you go. You're really, you always paid the bills and you're always really lovely. I was a small guy, but, you had that relationship. And I bought all the beans, the green beans, and then I got a warehouse. And Rachel signed on the first loan. So going into my office, $9,000 personal loan, 15% interest, people, back then even. It was right off the back of the bad times, right? I mean, people think it's bad at 7. It was, I was like, I didn't care. I knew, $9,000. Ended up paying, I think, $11,500 for that $9,000. And with $9,000, I went and bought the roaster. Actually, it was supposed to be for a Telstra van, the $9,000. And I took the money and paid $3,000 for the Telstra van, $3,000 for the coffee, $3,000 for the roaster. And then I got Mr. Katransky. So in Southport, anybody and even on the coast would know him. Old man Katransky, another sliding moment. I go into his office. I'm talking to his director about leasing this place. I'm going to give you a 3x3 lease, but I need 6 months free rent. You need to hook up my roaster. And he's like, no, that's not going to happen. You got to put something into this. Anyway, Mr. Katransky gets onto the phone. Never met him before. Gets on the phone. Okay. Don goes, Mr. Katransky wants to meet you. What I didn't realize was the door led in the boardroom, led in his office, and he could hear me. American. Being loud sometimes actually helps, right? Anyway, I stood in front of him, and Mr. Katransky looked at me and said, what do you want? I said, well, 3x3 and 6 months free rent, and I want you to put my roaster in. And he goes, we're going to do it. And I remember his director going, we are? He goes, we're going to do it. He goes, you had one thing on me from when I come to this country. One thing on me. Because I can see it in your eyes, you're going to do it. I said, what's that? He goes, I couldn't speak any English. He said, but you're going to do it. 8 months later, he passed away. But to this day, I get people in his family every couple of years tapping me on the shoulder and saying, he told us to watch you.
Wow.
He told us you were going places. Of course, Rachel, I remember taking her in, warehouse and the entrepreneurial hell that I then took her on.
Is this Pinter Drive?
Yeah, Pinter Drive days.
Wow.
Yep, 60 square meter, 3 kilo roaster.
So that's on just off Ferry Road, opposite where the Hungry Jack's is.
Yeah, that was late 96.
Yep.
And I remember kind of sitting there and going like this, going in a picture, and it tells us, she's like, oh shit, like I could see it, but she couldn't. And I then began to take her through this entrepreneurial hell, in that I didn't know she didn't know. I didn't know she didn't see. She told me later on, hey, nobody else can see it, including her. Rachel couldn't see, and she'd look in the bank and see a bill for 300 and we had 100, sort of thing. There's a lot of in-between stuff that happens too. And a lot of it is very poignant, but the big ones like Mr. Katransky, Rachel putting the 9,000 into me. So she's the Warren Buffett. I'm the entrepreneur, and she's doing okay out of the dividends now. She's all right.
She is.
She's happy. But we went through pain until I realized how to take her along for the ride, how to share the knowledge, and make sure that she realized that it wasn't all for nothing, and there was a plan. But in the early first few years, it was hard, Yeah.
It's a really interesting one when you've got a couple and one of the two has a huge dream. And sometimes that dream is so big that there's only enough space for one huge dream between the two of you. How did you navigate that with Rachel, leading her and inspiring her to believe in you, despite, I'm sure she had her own dreams and her own hobbies, but for so many years, I'm sure you guys were the Zarraffa's couple.
Well, I hate to disappoint you. She had no choice. She gave up everything. And reluctantly, she gave up her dreams. At that point in time, there was only space for what I wanted to do. And that was from my mind, because I knew I never wanted to do it again. I knew how hard it was going to be. And I didn't want any monkeys on my back. Including her, I said, if you don't want to help, stay out of my way, because this is going to be hard. She helped. But, sorry only gets you so far. But if there's anybody that deserved my apology, it would always be Rachel. It was fucking tough. I don't know how else to say it. It was just, it wasn't, behind the scenes, it was hard. I was still working until we got Australia Fair open in 1997 upstairs. I got the center to give us 20 grand to go in, and then I got another investor in, which isn't with us anymore, because he's a dickhead. He put in money to take over the original directors, Laszlo, the manager, and his wife. They only lasted a month or two, and they went, we don't think it's going to work. We want out. Give us our money back. So I was like, okay. So I found this other investor, and I found Rhonda, Rachel's old boss, that said yes to us dating. And they put in the money to, one, buy out Laszlo and Melissa, but also to get us into the first store. And no need to go into the specifics, but that 8 months upstairs, I was still working at nights, so I could pay who's now one of my best friends, Dylan, brother from a different mother. I was out at nights. I remember even finding out a couple years later that I'd go and he'd wonder why I was so tired, and I'd show up late sometimes in the morning. It was because I was working all night. The old Charlie's in Broad Beach. 24-hour, I was there. I was doing graveyard. And I'd try to go get some sleep, and if I couldn't, I just went straight in. And he couldn't believe it. He said, no wonder you're an asshole, because I was so tired. I was. I had a lot of ambition. I had that passion. But in Australian terms, I turned into a cunt. I did. And not the one that you want as your mate. Thank God I woke up to myself. Probably really didn't wake up to myself until I had cancer. I think that kind of happens sometimes. You really look at it. But I started to wake up to myself, and I started to take Rachel along for the ride. I put her next to me and said, this is why I'm doing it. So her whys weren't questioning me. And I think people forget that. They think, you're questioning me. No, she just didn't know. And when I realized that, I was like, oh no. See, that little kid raised its head, you don't believe in me. And it's like, oh, it's conflict, right? And I realized she always believed in me. She was just scared because of the money. And she was rightly so. Rightly so. I mean, here's a woman who gave up fucking everything. And again, for her, it probably was a fantasy at the time. For me, it was a dream. One day, you do this for me, and you can have anything you want. Your dreams will come true because we'll have the money to do it. And you'll have the time because we've got the money to do it. You'll be able to buy your time back. But I know she'll never, she's forgiven me, I think. I hope so. But she'll never forget it because she went through it too. And the part about Mr. and Mrs. Campbell and Zarraffa's? I never did this, but for years, and even probably today, and this is something I can't help, and most people who are stars or big in business, whether it's a woman or a man, she was the wife. And fuck everybody for treating her that way along the way if you did it. And if you're doing that to somebody else, don't do it either, because she was my support mechanism, taking care of my 3 beautiful men, my boys who've now become gentlemen. She was then washing my clothes and handing them to me and giving me rides and going without. It wasn't until we got married, it's 20 years ago next month, that we got married. She had the 3 boys first. We had the business. Everybody thought, we're killing it. Everything's great. But she was the one looking at the bills coming through. She was the one taking care of the accounts. She was the one stressing about it. And then people would say, where's Kenton? This is the wife. She was never just my wife. She was my partner. She was my friend. She was my confidant. And she cared more than anybody, besides maybe, her parents, certainly Bob, So was it worth it? No. If there's any advice I could give to anybody out there going through it, take them for the ride. Do it from day one. You can't do it alone anyway. I mean, what's the reason you do it? Where does my passion come from? Taking care of my family. Not making it worse. Making it better. So take them for the ride. But the person on the other side needs to understand. They don't need to understand everything either. And sometimes that person, if you believe in them, then believe in them. Support them, even if they fall. Man, there's so many times I fell. So many millions of dollars of mistakes I made. So it's a bit of both ways, but if I could do anything, that would be the one thing I wish I could have said to myself. And I would have taken that advice. I would have taken her for the ride, and I would have loved her even that much more. And until she was right to do it, I wouldn't have moved forward. Who cares if I had one less store or $1 less million? Who fucking would have cared? And does it make it better now that she's got her horses, her dreams? I mean, at our wedding night, I said it. I said the speech from my wedding reception. Everyone that knew me went, oh, you fucked it up for every other guy in this place. So I said, it's your turn next. I told you. What do you want? And she said, horses. And I was like, oh, fuck. I did. Isn't that stupid? I had no idea. I was like, horses? You've never talked about horses before? Well, maybe that's because I never asked the question. I was like, okay. Then I went and found out about horses, and I worked out the horses is the cheapest part about the horse. And I gave her some money in folding. I said, that's for a horse, and here's a book, because I know you can't buy another person a horse. And I said, I need 5 more years to buy the place to put the horse on. She's like, 5 years. But 5 years almost to the date, we moved out to near where we're at now in Guanaba. And she had a couple of horses, and now we moved to a bigger place, and she's got 10 horses. And I know I want to come back as a horse in her care, I tell you. But I can tell you right now, it's not worth it. Sacrificing any part of your relationship with somebody that's special never is a price that you want to pay. And I know, Reg probably will watch this, and I'm still sorry. Well, thank God we're in an industry that's forgiving, that people love. Thank God there's a lot of Ron Ralphs and Dakotas and Olaf von Michaelovskis with his dog Tash. He used to come in all the time. Thank God we've got wonderful customers, people that we love. I mean, growing the brand, it's one thing that should never change. And it's one thing we work hard every day. But if we didn't have this industry, then I don't think we would have made it.
Mm.
The industry forgave and forgave and forgave all my fucking mistakes. Yeah.
Just on that, when you say taking her on the ride, what do you mean? Because if, let's just hypothetically say you had a 25-year-old son that had a massive dream and a partner that he loved dearly, what would you tell him? What would be the ways for him to include her so she's not just the wife?
Unfortunately, you can never take away the way people think, and they're always going to be the husband or the wife. Marnie, my sister-in-law, is the CEO, and she'll still get overlooked. I'm always going to be the founder. And no one will ever stop doing that. So one is to let them know that it's not me that did that to Rachel. There's plenty of times I would like to headbutt or punched out people for being rude. But I noticed it, and guess what type of business dealings they had with me? Anybody that ever overlooked those good women in my life, I made them pay the ultimate price. They couldn't have me, or if they thought they had me, they never did. I always checked those people out. I always watched the way that the people in my family got treated.
Remembered.
So one is make sure that you're congruent in what you want to do. Make sure that you both got roles that don't overlap if you're going to be in the business. Make sure the ride is letting them know along the way what your decisions are, and just see what they say. Get feedback. But the other person in the relationship, whether it's, a partnership, husband-wife, husband-husband, it doesn't matter. You both need to understand where you fit. It's the same with the franchising. Most of the franchisees, when they're partners, one will do the front of house operations, the other one will do the administration. Yeah. And you need to support and understand what the other person's putting up with. One's putting up with the customers. And what I mean by putting up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And in the very beginning, not everybody loved, like some people are like, I want it in a real cup. And you're like, fucker, I just worked all night and I'm here to serve you coffee. It is a real cup. Thunk, It's a paper cup, but it's, back in the beginning, it was about getting through all that, right? So Rachel understood I worked hard. I mean, I remember when I said I got all 3 jobs, she was like, oh, thank God. He's a keeper. I think she went, hard work will get you a long way. But I was
receipts.
Yeah.
Like receipts that you are who you say you are.
Yeah. So for her, it was support me, please. And you're never going to get the accolades. You will from the right people. But when I'm talking about accolades, so Maccabi Diva, who rode Maccabi Diva? It's a horse. Surely you should remember the human riding them. Black Caviar? Remember who rode? Who owns them? Probably take a guess, can probably be closer. So I said to Rachel once, I'm the racehorse. Get on me and ride, Sexual connotation, Kenton. But you've got a winning horse. Are you the trainer? Are you the rider? Are you the owner? You're the Warren Buffett. You put $9,000 into a business now will turn over quarter billion dollars this year. Took us 20 years to do $1 billion. Now we're going to do it in 3 or 4. That's what you did. And that's pretty cool. And you helped the back. Because could I have done it without Rachel? No fucking chance.
Could you or would have you?
Both. If you don't have a reason that's real, where does it come from? For me, at least, it was always about my family and seeing my whole family, my Australian family, be able to share in that success. But if you want the success, you need to be willing to do the work. You can't just take the success. You need to be willing to do your part. And I would say now, there's been times where Rachel is, in the years, I know we've grown together too. She's become an amazing businesswoman. She's seen it all now, right? She's very supportive, and I'm able to give her the passion. So with her horses, it's kind of the reverse, right? I'm helping her with the passion, and I stay out of the way. If she needs help, I get her. I'll give her more funds to help people clean it up. Because if I'm busy, that's where funds come. It's great. It's a resource. Or if she really needs me, I'm there mucking out stables the way she wants them, not the way I want it, the way she wants it. So it's the reverse. I'm now supporting her. I want her to take me for the ride, literally. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Alrighty, guys, we're going to take a really quick break from today's episode and talk to you about our sponsor for today's episode, Prodigy X. Now, I know for myself, and I'm sure it's very similar for many people who watch this show, I've got incredibly audacious goals with the things that I want to achieve in my life. And one of the things that comes with having those goals is the requirement to be ultra productive on a day-to-day basis. That starts for me in the morning. In the morning, I have a very strict routine, and an unmatched element of that routine has been jumping in the ice bath first thing in the morning. It outcompetes coffee. It outcompetes energy drinks. It is genuinely, quite literally, a full body experience mentally and physically. I really wish I started this earlier. I can't imagine how much more productive I would have been if I started jumping in an ice bath first thing in the morning earlier. Prodigy X are the best in the business when it comes to ice baths. The team have meticulously designed the most robust high-performance ice bath on the market. Head to prodigyx.com.au/SamHope to get your hands on the best ice bath in the market and take your productivity game to the next level.
There's a lot of things in life you can't go back on. my Nana being able to come over and meet my wife in the early days was wonderful. My grandfather being able to afford to go fly and see him in Florida the last years he was alive. In fact, the last year he was alive was the year my father-in-law passed, and also I got cancer. And our neighbor across the road, which I knew really well enough that he said when I was coming into the neighborhood, "There goes the neighborhood." He passed away as well. So lost 3 good men, and I thought I was on the way out that same year. But I was able to go see him because I had the finances to do it. And one of the last things he said to me was, "I'm proud of you, but I hope at some point in your life you know what it is to be content, because you're not there." I loved my life. There's not anything about it I would change, he said to me. Not anything. I adored your Nana. I loved you. I loved my life. And he said, if you come all the way around the world and I can't go have Mexican and a beer with you, or sit at the window and smoke my pipe and read a book, that's not living. And he passed away. He gave it up. 6 months later, he was gone. But that stuck with me pretty hard, that content part. And, during that same year, I needed the shake-up. And I think I've only just come out of it. I think it took me 10 years to slow up. I looked at it as, at that period in my life, so if you go to 2013, we had enough stores. We were doing pretty well. We were in a nice house. Rachel had her horses. The boys were turning into just wonderful young men. I reunited for many years with my daughter, and she was coming over from time to time. And then life punched me again, and it punches us all nowadays. I mean, there's nobody that doesn't get that involved in their life, whether it's to them or someone else. But for me, I felt like I was so far in front of everybody that I couldn't see them and they couldn't see me. And it was very lonely. I was so far into dreaming about the next day that I wasn't living today. I wasn't living today. And I remember coming out of it and doing a couple of pretty important things. Some of them were scary. One was I went up to the edge of the bed where Rachel was sitting one day, and I put my head on her lap and I said, "Do you still love me?" And it was a question that I didn't really know what the answer would be. For me, it was all that worth it? Really? Did I, And she said, "I've never loved you more." Oh, okay. Because sometimes the answer can be not anymore. And I felt like that was the start of me going, okay, I need to turn around. And I said to Marnie at the time, which is our CEO, and her sister, and Rachel, I'm now back. I'm behind you. Here's my hand. Take me where you will. I'm not going to be leading anymore. You lead the way and I'll support you. The business doesn't need an entrepreneur anymore. And I don't need 200 plane flights a year. Living up the front, drinking. I hated flying. I don't like flying.
Is that where you developed your love for the sparkling?
Oh yeah, I'm a champagne boy. And when I found out when you're flying up the front, they just keep pouring it. I was like, even before I was pissed before we took off. I was like, this flying's fucking great. That's what allowed me to go see my grandfather. The first flight I took to Asia, business, on British Airways. Halfway through the flight, I realized we were flying. So I'm in a conversation. It was a big aircraft. It was comfortable. And I remember saying at that moment, I want to go see my grandfather. I don't want him to die and not see him. Because my grandmother, I didn't know until a month after she died that she had passed. And it killed me. So I thought, no, I'm not going to. I can afford this. I'm going to do it. But yeah, it got to about 200 plane flights in 1 year.
Wow.
And so that between having cancer and going, okay, I need to rethink things in my life, and drinking's one of them. I was never an alcoholic. I was a functioning drunk. I was kind of like Churchill. You know, I worked out that buzz thing, and champagne you can drink, you know, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You know, it's great. And also it's champagne. You know that song, Champagne. I can't remember. Champagne showers or whatever. Maybe that's something different. But I was on the flight, hearing this song at the time, going to see my grandfather. I was 38 years old. I just won Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Rachel and I had just taken out Gold Coast Business Excellence Awards for the second year running. And I was on my way to go see my grandfather up the front. And I was like, oh yeah, I made it. That would have been, you know, so that's 5 or 6 years before, you know, the 2013 kind of shake-up year. And I don't want to have any regrets. It was more, the question that was posed to me by a good friend was, you're never going to sell because you'll never get what you want. And I said, well, I don't know that I'll ever sell because I love it still, but I remember calling Rachel. I'm like, damn him. Fuck him for saying that. And it's like, I want more, more, more. And I called up Rachel and I said, no, what do you want? What do you need? She goes, I'm already good. I mean, a little bit bigger, flatter paddocks for my horses, you know, but I'm good. She wasn't willing to sacrifice more for more, you know, more money, more stress. She was like, hey, I'm cool. That was the content thing, right? And that's when I started pulling back. And I think I said it would take around 10 years, and it's been just over 10 years since that year, you know, cancer, all that shit happening. It took me 10 years to chill out a bit.
Just, if we just go through that timeline. So from Australia Fair to now, what are the key quick highlight seasons of Zarraffa's in terms of maybe size, whatever metrics you want to measure it by? Just to paint the context.
So I'll see if I get the dates right, and I'll try to flow through them. And I'll try to make it meaningful because, you know, I want you and anyone else to take out of this that it sounds easy when I say these things, but each one of these are pinnacle moments that were good and bad. So, I mean, starting with the car accident, definitely seeing the coffee industry hadn't happened in Eagle Street.
Yep.
Rachel signing that loan, which sits next to my office in a frame.
Wow, that's cool.
From humble beginnings, $9,000. She's done okay, all right. She's Warren Buffett. I mean, I get a nice salary and a good car allowance and good accommodation and flights. Rachel owns the thing. She's owned it since the beginning. You know, she's my sugar mama. So 1996, opening the first roastery and having Mr. Kutransky believe in me, knew me before I knew myself, really, one of those guys. Opening up the first store upstairs, Australia Fair, that was 97. Being smart enough to go to the manager and say, we need somewhere downstairs, because literally people were fighting. Nanas were fighting over the tables because there's only 3 tables and 9 chairs. And then I tried to make more tables and seek forgiveness, not ask for permission. And they're like, you can't do that. I'm like, well, find me another site. It's too busy. Definitely Harbour Town.
Was that still within a complex, or was that a drive-through?
No, Harbour Town. We didn't do drive-throughs till 2009. Okay. So if you go back, this was 1999. Harbour Town, I amalgamated the office, which was at Pinner Drive, to Harbour Town. The roastery, upgraded to a 10-kilo roaster from the 3, and had a coffee shop right in front of, for 20 years, right in front of the cinemas. And it's fortuitous there because the landlord who had purchased the buildings I was in, I said, I want to go into your warehouse, which is right where Harbour Town was supposed to be back then. And I met with him on the corner of one of the entries off of Brisbane Road. And he said, "Oh, you shouldn't be talking to me. You should be in the shopping center." So what do you mean? That's not going to happen. It's been supposed to happen for years. And they said, no, I was with the gentleman, Bernard Lewis, I think. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he's passed since. Never got to meet him personally, but he was the one that started Lewis Land, which owned Harbortown. Because I was with him this morning in Sydney. It's happening. And I literally drove around to Century Cove, Sovereign Islands, and they had a display there for Harbortown and everything. And I looked at the site and I said, I'll have that or nothing, because it was right next to the cinemas. I could get longer trade. And there was a roundabout at that time, so it was convenient. People could kind of drive up, grab their coffee and go. So that was a big one. That was a big one too, because Rachel called me up because while we were busy, I think we had 20 grand back then, first week. Thought I was king of the world. Rachel called me up crying because we moved in the offices, but we hadn't moved everything. And the faxes were coming in for all the bills, 400 grand worth. And she called me up and she said, "Is there another way we can do this?" Crying. And I was like, oh my God, I'll find a way. Now, he's not going to like me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's the truth. There's a gentleman from Gloria Jeans that brought Gloria Jeans over here. And he was up that Christmas in 1999 during the opening. And his wife and daughter were out, and he had left a card to meet me. And he'd gone to the restroom, come back. I'm with his wife and daughter, and he comes up like, "Can I help you?" I'm like, "Oh, you gave a card, and, I'm one of the owners." And he goes, "Oh." Anyway, we have a chat for about a half an hour, and he goes, "Why don't you franchise it?" This is the head of the
Gloria Jeans Australia.
Gloria Jeans Australia.
Yeah.
And he says, "Why don't you franchise?" I said, "Franchising is a 4-letter word to me." And he goes, No, the code's changed in 1998. There's an even playing field now. And he goes, "The other thing is, this is franchisable. But I'm going to explain something to you. You got one store here, now 2. You got one in Brisbane, you got one on Sunshine Coast eventually. All your managers call in sick that same day. Which one do you go open?" Shit. So I went in on the whiteboard in the office and I wrote pros and cons to owning versus franchising. And at the end of it, I had a happy life, a wife that loved me, the kids that I wasn't estranged from. And I had to give up a part of the profits. We had to share in the overall profit.
Which resulted in the franchisee having more responsibility and therefore rocking up. And
if you want to do all the work, you make all the money. If you want to
Right.
share in that work, you share the money.
Right.
And there's enough in this industry if you do it right. So we had 2 stores that were making money. And I thought, well, okay. So I went to my lawyer and my accountant at the time and said, I can't afford to pay you, but I'll give you 2.5% of the franchise entity if you do the books and everything to set me up for free. As in, you do it as sweat equity and I'll give you 2.5 each. My accountant was smart enough, and he's still a shareholder today, smart enough to give me another 50 grand and say, "Can I give you this for 5%? So he valued the company before it even got going, the franchise, at $1 million. So Harbortown wasn't included. The roaster wasn't included. It was just the franchise side. So he was smart. He was smart enough to see it and go, yeah, it's a good investment too. He's been a huge support too. There's been people along the way that just helped. But so the first franchise happened in October, I want to say 1st. I think it was the anniversary of me being here, but it was, pretty sure it was October 1st of 2001. We opened our first franchise. And that's a huge pinnacle because the shop fitter at the time did the wrong thing. Post Office Square was in as well. We were open at the same time in a second store in Australia Fair, and the builder wasn't following through, and I wasn't getting the payments from the landlord. And I remember him coming in and shirt confronting me with his brother and saying, "You need to pay these bills." I'm like, "Well, I'll pay it. I've got the money. Fix the problems, because I can't get the other money until I do that." I realized he was actually, trying to staunch out me. And I was like, "Are we all gonna go to the hospital today?" This is out front of Harvard Town, having a coffee. And he goes, "What?" And I said, "Are we all gonna go to the fucking hospital today? You're here to fucking put it on me, aren't you? You want some, feel fucking jump, but we're all gonna go to the hospital today." And he's like, "Oh," went to water, typical bully. Anyway, he pulled a big one on me, right? Post Office Square, third store, fourth store, franchise. He didn't get any permission from Gandel's, the landlord, to do the shop fit. So the operations manager on the day we were opening said, "Come here for a second." So yeah. He goes, "Why didn't you tear it down and fucking start again?" I was like, "What?" He goes, "You've got no permission you didn't seek any permission to do this." I'm like, "That's the shop fitter. First franchise."
Mm.
Post Office Square, bit of my fault, bit of the landlord's fault. And this guy, what a blessing. He goes in and thinks, "I'm gonna go tear out the whole front counter at Post Office Square. And I'm not gonna put it back in until he pays me." Thanks, mate. I was sitting there at Post Office Square doing a midnight runner, taking the Z, back then it was all single letters, the Z off, the A off, in the bulkhead. I'd undo it, and then the other person on the other side, one of my managers at the time, and his dad come help me move out with a moving truck. With the NAB, and by the way, NAB, one of the best banks, supported me. I called them up and said, "Look, I'm gonna do it. They've done the wrong thing by me. They lied to me, the landlords. They let the guy go in and take it. They actually called and said, 'Can I get permission?' And they didn't tell me that the guy was gonna come in and take my front counter. They should have stopped him." So I'm in there, long words, Zarraffa's coffee, and I'm crying, literally crying my eyes out, going, because in the Courier Mail, it was the dark horse of the coffee industry comes to Brisbane. And I'm like, the dark fucking horse of the fucking coffee industry, fucking, the A's ready, fucking, Anyway, we do this midnight runner, which I didn't feel good about, but I had no choice. Took everything that was usable and put it into storage, was able to put everything back in. And the NAB representative called up this shop fitting company and said, "You've got my stuff." Because what he didn't realize was he took all the stuff that was leased by the NAB. Shortly thereafter, the stuff went into storage, and we were able to repurpose it into other stores. So, first franchise.
Wow.
Third store, gone. Now, the franchise up there wasn't gone. We ended up opening it up. The guy settled down. I was like, "Can we just talk? What do you want me to do? I'll do anything. This, please." And he's a bit arrogant. I mean, shopping center guy. Thought he owned the place. His name wasn't Gandel. I just thought I got to be nice to him. Again, I want to throw him over the banister. I was like, oh, it was a big man. It actually went down a few floors. I was like, I mean, can you imagine? First franchise. Anyway, that was probably a big one on due diligence. And that's in everything. So your shop fitters, not being naive about the spot. Agreements, all that. It really woke me up. All right, due diligence, big time. I started to go get more analytical on what information can I collect to see if this is going to be the right site or the right area, and then looking at the leases and the agreement, making sure that when somebody says they're going to do something the right way, that they actually do it. You have to follow it up. Unfortunately, you have to. So 2001 was huge. Starting off franchising, it took 32 stores to break even. 32 stores later to break even from franchising. So,
And what year is that?
oh, now you're testing me.
Roughly range.
2005, 2006, maybe a bit later. Like we had a couple of years where we opened 10. Yeah, it would have been in the mid 2000s. But 32 stores without being a supplier, like roasting coffee for a good price to go into the stores. Like I charged myself because nothing's for free.
Yeah.
Like it's all got to, but
gotta
because
stack.
we were virtually integrated and we had a couple of good stores we owned, we still owned Harbortown and a couple other stores at the time. They were all profitable. That went in to pay for the head office staff. 32 stores, we broke even, started making money. But we were making money on those other services we were providing, thank goodness. So the next big year would have been 2009. Actually, no, I'll go back. Around that period of time, I realized the writing on the wall with the centers, the shopping centers. And look, they had a purpose for us. And I appreciate every deal I've done because our brand wouldn't have gotten recognized without their help and support.
It's a good
But
detail.
what I realize is with the shopping centers, it's restrictive, not by them being restrictive, but by the sheer nature of a shopping center. Coffee's already happened at 9 when it opens. You're closed all the holidays, and there's all these other competitors because coffee is easy to get into. So there was massive amount of competition for that same dollar. So I realized on the first renewal, which was like 6 years or so at Australia Fair, one of those shopping centers, and certainly Harbortown was one of those where the rent doubled because they could see what we were doing. But yet more competition came in. It was less, there was development going on, so it was less convenient. So I realized I'm making less, but they want more because they can see what I could do. So Crestwood, which would have been in that period, I can't remember off the top, unfortunately, but it was like 11th store, 10th store. Crestwood moves outside the shopping centers for the first time. And that's on the way to, it's Olsen Avenue on the way onto the Ferry Road, not Ferry Road, Smith Street, Smith Street connector. So we're on that, really easy to get on. And from day one, nothing else was open, and we did more money than we did in the center. They had made their money by 11 o'clock. They were making money, right away. And I thought, oh, that's the last center. And basically, it was the last center we went into. We started doing strip malls. 2009, I said, we've got this drive-through. It was a small franchise enhancement council. Back then, it was at head office, and there was like 10 of us. And I said, we've got our first drive-through. We've negotiated on. I'm not sure what I'm going to do as far as franchise, or do we do it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we end the meeting. I'm going upstairs, and 2 franchisees are following me up, the Blakemores. Deb and Brendan, Blakemore, following me up. I'm like, hey, can I help you? We want to be the franchisee. We want to do the drive-through. Followed me into the office. We talked about it a bit more. I go, okay, let's put it together. 2009 is probably the critical one, drive-through, right? And I'm going to fast forward a little bit because it's important. 2009, if I hadn't gone into drive-throughs then, COVID happens. We would not, I would have sold at the very least, but I don't think the brand would be sustainable anymore. I think it would be another horror story in franchising because there wasn't enough money. People that were in the centers, just the way that shopping center mentality was as landlords. Again, we're in some of the shopping center car parks now with drive-throughs. So we still are involved with them, but we needed to be smart enough. So it's not the bank's fault and it's not the landlord's fault. It's your fault if you go in and think that they're going to change what they do. You got to work with what they do. So for me, I realized that the shopping centers restricted the type of trade we needed to do to make it, to reinvest, and we didn't have tenure. So how can a franchisee build anything if they know in 6 or 7 years the rent's going to double and they've got to do a refit? We closed 23 stores during COVID, all in shopping centers. Never to open again. That's how fundamental it was. Thank God we had drive-thrus. So 2009 first drive-through. And then The next would probably be 2013, just after I was sick and I come through it. Would have been probably late 2013, early 2014. I did a CEO trip to every single store for two reasons. I wanted to find out, was I still relevant? Did I still have it? Did I still want to do it? And two, was the brand worth the time to do it? Like, were we a good brand? And number one was, I was surprised how consistently good they were. Like, it's hard being consistent. Nobody's ever perfect. We all have bad days. But I was surprised at how good we were on the main thing, the coffee and the service. The other things to fix on that trip, I ended up coming up with a few KPIs, which I will not share with anybody because they've become really renownedly successful. I'll share one with you. It was about the staff. If I could come up with better training, because in this country, training is harder than franchising, and logistics is harder than roasting coffee. The two hardest things in this country are training and logistics. The other two I thought were pretty easy. So if I can take 5 people and make it 4 by training them and getting them better, they're much happier because you've got a good team then, and you're all rolling off each other. And obviously, we're then 20 to 25%, because labor in this country has always been pretty high, especially for what we do. And that's coming from, I mean, I made $3.35 and earned tips when I was a kid. So, I mean, it's not to say that it's not worth it, but the wages are always going to be the highest thing in business, at least in our business. It's one of the higher things. Food costs that. Rent, if rent's a problem, you're in a big problem. You've never got tenure. You've never got a future. And for me, that was the big one. By moving out of the centers first and then by getting drive-through second, we were able to balance all those out so the franchisee could make, and they make the lion's share of the money, by the way. We make money, they make money. And you always know how well you're doing when a franchisee says, after they're complaining about something, oh, so you don't want another store? And they're like, no, I wasn't here. We're very consultative, as a franchise chain. We're very consultative. They're partners. The difference is it's unequitable. We're always going to be here, and franchisees can go. So you always have to think about the brand, But that trip allowed me to see the business get some KPIs that were very fundamental to where we're at today. Again, from 2013, 2014, that trip, and drive-thrus, we never did another store again. We only did drive-through stores and DTWs, drive-through walk-ups, soon came into our future. We would never have been successful during COVID. The worst thing to ever happen ended up being the best thing to ever happen for our brand and other brands like it. I mean, that was a time where people either went to the wall or they saw great success. And for us, we were there for our customers too. So we got all these customers that were like, thank God you can open and we can have that one bit of life. We can get out of the house. We were considered, I think it's because it's a drug after all, caffeine, right? We're considered a necessity. And Rachel, who's not very emotional, I remember when Scott Morrison got up and said, and drive-thrus can open, she's like, yeah, like the Toyota, like out of the chair going, oh. Well, that's because from Harbour Town, I moved to Saganto Drive with the roastery. And then just before COVID.
Which is DRM, yeah.
Distillery Road Markets. I go up there, I buy this building, and I spend the first so besides the building, $20 million putting the head office, roastery, and logistic facilities in to grow, and then COVID.
Is there anything, just to kind of double tap into that, is there anything you can share about the DRM deal? I'd imagine a lot of it's
it's another
numbers, but specifically around the deal and maybe.
Well, looking back on it now, I never would have done it again, because like, what a clusterfuck of a thing for me to do. But, now it works out. Everybody's like, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are in the community going, this is his fuck up. This is where he's done. He's screwed up here. And I cried a lot in that building. Why did I do this? What the fuck are you thinking? So in 2015, we opened up the roastery in a second building in Saganto Drive. And I thought, 3 months later, Christmas, it was already too small. I was like, oh shit. I'm looking for buildings, north and south. Looked at Gavin, right off the M1 at property when it was still available there to build. Anyway, I drive past this building to Brisbane one day. I'm like, go in, drive back and forth a couple of days. Yeah, I could handle this drive. And I go into Logan Council and say, hey, I'm Kenton, I'm from Zarraffa's. I'm thinking of moving our head office and roasting facilities. And during the 9 years it was in receivership, mortgagee in possession, never certified. The building was never certified. It had switched from Gold Coast to Logan.
Oh, that's interesting.
Thank God. Logan, the guy I meet with, says, you want to bring Zarraffa's here? I was like, oh, yeah. He goes, will you have giraffes? Like, you can do, Alma Park Zoo was supposed to be there. You want? I was like, well, no, we're not going to do Taronga Zoo and have them swing, going, I'm so fucking bored. But yeah, I want to bring giraffes here. And there's going to be a balance to the property, which I want to turn into maybe some markets and a brewery and that, but I don't know yet. And he goes, well, we'll support it. We'll be supportive. We'll help you. They have a sort of a fast track on some things so we can get the answers to keep going. And
because it's advantageous for the council.
Oh yeah, it was an eyesore. I mean, there was a community center. Sure. It was a community center. Oh, there was people doing all, my electrician called me one day and said, oh, there's a porno going on in the corner. And he let it go for 5 minutes and said, look, you got to stop. And they're like, hey, you shouldn't be here. And he's like, no, you shouldn't be here. It was definitely a community center. But because it was an eyesore, Logan, to their word, even to this day, 10 years, this Christmas when I bought it. But I went to the real estate company and I basically said, you've got this other company, that's all great. I've done my due diligence, which was walking through and making sure the superstructure, graffiti didn't bother me, doors that weren't put in, cement that wasn't put in, because they put the tools down on the place in 2008. And until I came in 2015, people had looked, but nobody was owner-occupier like Zarraffa's would be. I think that's what excited the council too, that we're owner-occupier and we're a good brand and looking to grow. Anyway, I go in and I make an offer on this building and I say, here's a deposit and I'm not here tomorrow. So take the other one if you want to, but I'll buy it.
And you've got enough capital to do this at the point in time.
Sure. Yeah. We did. And to Rachel's credit, I was up there cleaning on a demo Karcher. Thank you, Karcher. You're wonderful. Karcher gave me this demo, and I spent like 28 hours on it to make sure it was the right vehicle, and then I gave it back to him. We bought a few Karchers now, so it's okay. But literally, I was on this thing the size of a car doing the cleanup. It took 20 tippers and 150 grand to clean it out. Just clean it out. And at one point, I'm on this thing. I'm listening to my beats, probably a real good rap song. I was just like, I'd cried in the corner just before that same day. I just was like, what the fuck? Because I look how big it is. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do with all this space? And Rachel calls me up, like, yep. She goes, this is a couple years after getting through the cancer and her dad, all this shit happening, right? Kind of a shakeup. And she said, you got your mojo back. I was like, yeah, I do. And she goes, it's the place up there, isn't it? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, good. But I'm going to support you. I'm not coming up and looking at it because all I'll see is what's not spent, which was a real good thing. She ended up seeing how much was spent because she had to insure it all and all that.
Yeah.
She was still doing the administration. and some of that stuff come through her. And she goes, but I'm not going to come up until I have to, until Zarraffa's opens up in there. I'm not going to come up. And to her word, 2 years later, she came up.
Wow.
And she looked at me, looked at the building. We're doing this tour with the board. And she goes, oh my fucking God. This isn't big, this is huge. And she's like, I didn't realize it was this big. You let me know if it's a tough day. I'm pouring you a whiskey when you get home. I don't care what day it is. This is beyond what I thought it was. It doesn't look that big from the freeway, but it's nearly 5 acres under roof. It's
If you look at a bird's eye view.
I've actually got a video later I can show you. It's of 3 minutes, and it's over from the time we bought the building. I went out and got all the
a time lapse.
I got all the time lapse equipment. It was cheaper to buy it all, and then I had somebody come in and check it every month, and then edit it all. I did that with my house as well.
Oh wow.
But it's stuff you go back. I actually looked at it and was like, oh shit, it was a clusterfuck. I mean, to give you an idea, the plumbing. The head of the plumbing came in. This is how much Logan was behind it. Head of plumbing came in and said, look, I need to see your
plans.
Project manager. And he sees Michael, and Michael calls me up and goes, geez, you must have some real clout in Logan right now, because he wanted to come see me, and he said, you need to re-camera which we had cameraed them, but we hadn't taken video, because all the plumbing was already put in. And I need then you to give that to us, and we'll have a look at it. It's going to cost you $3,000. And it ended up costing about the same to get the cameraing done and get the video taken. And he came back and he said, there's only 2 spots, which cost about 30, 40 grand. 5-acre building. That was the inside, and they approved it. They certified it. It's one of the first certifications I needed. Now, other places would have gone, rip it up and start again.
Yeah.
All right? I had to do things like put more metal in, because the standard changed, because it was never certified.
Yeah.
The amount of steel I paid, again, thank God, because it was before COVID, before the prices, 50, 100% up. I had to put in another support band on the whole building, on every single one that had single up on the roof. I had to put another one in. So there's things like that to conform with current power. The power had all been ripped out. So I had to put in 2,000 kilowatts of power with interjects. That was a big one. So all this big infrastructure, all the fire sprinklers were in, and they're all good, but none of the other pumps or anything was put in. So I had to put all the fire in. And here's the thing, the biggest mind fuck was I didn't want to worry about the other half of the building. And they said, no, you need to know all that now. I'm like, why? Well, one, for certification and for the DA, so we can do the correct usage. And number 2, for your fire. So we know you don't want to do it twice. It's big. And that's where my nightmare, because I was like, I had ideas. I was still moving Zarraffa's in, started to hand over to Marnie, CEO, building the roastery with the supply, like doing all this stuff and going, now I got to figure out what it's going to be. And so I didn't go like I used to. The good part is I was more grounded, and I just thought, well, these are what I think. It's probably 20 renditions, but the same idea. It is what it is today. It's a market hall, which we have things like the vintage clothing yesterday, and or repurposed clothing. Love Me Again. We've had Army expos. We've had trading cards like the kids' cards like Pokemon. That's one of our biggest ones. We have those 4 times a year.
Wow.
We've had Green Spoon play to 1,200 people in our outdoor entertainment. Screaming Jets played. They hadn't played since the place closed down to be sold and rebuilt. It was like 1995. It was 20 years, at least 20, 25 years before. So it was in the early 90s, early 2000s that they played there last. They got to play there again, and it won't be the last time. So I've turned it now into something phenomenal. But I look back at this video and I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ, what was I thinking? So here's a big one, naivety, right?
Yeah.
Been talking about it. I thought it'd cost $4 million to do all the car parks and get everything right. Put another 0 on that motherfucker.
Wow.
40 mil. I thought thank God I had 10 years.
Yeah.
Thank God. So I stopped when COVID happened.
Yep.
If you go forward to COVID again, I stopped everything for 3 months. Everything. Stop. Get packaging everything here because we don't know what's going to happen. So we can still be specialty coffee. We waited for 3 months. I was closing stores and the revenue was going up. The drive-thrus saved the business. At 3 months, I went, let's go. And let's go hard because I could see the prices. I knew the prices were going to go up. You could just see it. It was going to happen. So I was like, get it here now, let's go. I had all this warehouse space. So we went full on. Even the brewery, my relationship with Brennan and Peter and Shannon over there at Burley Brewing, I said, I think I'm ready. I told them I wanted to do it. And they're like, let me know. It's a good idea and we'll support you. We'll help you. And so we started literally at that point. So 2020, 2021, to what Prenti, the brewery is now, we started working with them and he designed the perfect lager brewery for me and he's helped us as partners there. And we're the only, thanks to PETA, we're the only, between Burley Brewing and us, there is no big guys. We are the only beer that you can buy. 68 taps in there and you can't buy beer from any of the big guys. Now, why is that important? Well, because it just fucking is. Because we still brew, we don't do 9-day beer. It's not about mass quantity. It's about quality. It's about that experiential thing. It goes back to me as a young kid just wanting to serve. You know, there's nothing better than you can give or receive than somebody's service. And I love it. I love seeing people have a good time, families. And I don't care what family. I mean, I've seen one dude, he was tatted up, he's 6'5". He had a poodle in one hand, his daughter in the other. And he looked like a pretty knockabout boy. He looked like he could take care of himself. But he knows what that space is. It's a place for him to enjoy that. So it's really worked out that way. But yeah, go back and look at the beginning days. I never would have done it. I would have bought a building, put Zarraffas in, and just stayed that way. But I did it. So now I'm on the other side. And again, everybody's going to go, how great is it? And how wonderful is it? And yeah, it is now. And it's getting there. And we want to be iconic by Olympics. But it took a lot of sacrifice. Iconic is where it's Fergburger. For anybody that's gone to New Zealand, to Queenstown, before you reach, they will all tell you, go to Fergburger. So we want that same iconic where people go, you're going to be in Australia, you're going to be near the coast, Brisbane, you have to go to Distillery Road.
There is actually,
you have to.
There is an iconic shop not too far away.
Yeah.
They sell pies.
Oh yeah. Yatla.
The Yatla pies, yeah.
They sell a little bit. But that's right. But it takes you, I mean, it took them a long time to get that iconic status.
In a different way, but yeah.
For us, I think it's just enough time to do that. We've got so much going on up there. But it's fun, you know. Like this weekend coming, we've got a couple of big festivals, but one of them's the barbecue festival. So it's our first festival. Other ones, we have people come in and they do their own. So like the Country Music Fest is put on by Lasso. It's 2 girls that started playing for us when we had trucks and tunes outside and it would rain and 100 people would come. To now, they had sold out last year 1,000 people, and this year they think they'll get 2,500 people.
Wow!
So they just rent the space. We provide security, and we get all the food and beverage. So we do what we're good at, and they do what they're good at, and I think that's where the flexibility, and that's how we'll roll from now on. But owning our first festival, you know, it's our first time, so we're going to learn a lot. And I'm going to be in the smoke pit the whole weekend, so I'm happy as fuck. I'm going to look like I'm working, but I'm pigs in mud, you know?
On that note, how else do you spend your time these days? Obviously, you don't mind the mats.
When I built the new house, and the old house had it too, but we've got a dojo, got 4.5 meters by nearly 10 meters of mats. And Kimura Kenton. You know, the Kimura thing is funny. Key locks, I won a lot of my, when I did win my matches, it was key locks. I used to love doing it. And now with Jason and Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and the self-defense units, it's totally different. Like, you know, the world opens up, right? And COVID hurt Jay in that he had to close his gym at the time, but we were good enough friends at the time. I said, why don't you teach me 5 days a week so I can't escape it? And, he's been able to open a dojo up at Distillery Road, and he's kept with the jiu-jitsu. But for me, it was a blessing being the nail, because for 5 years, the last 5 years, especially the first couple, he'd come over, hand me a coffee, and beat the fuck out of me. He'd choke me out. So that is a constant. I do that 5 or 6 days a week. I love food. I've got quite a good home kitchen and outdoor
You do.
barbecue kitchen and all that.
It's a serious kitchen.
One of our chefs came to help for one of the boys' birthdays, the 21st. And she was like, oh, now this is a dream kitchen. And it is, we love cooking as a family. The boys really love my cooking, so they don't mind doing the dishes, But Rachel and I will take turns, but I love barbecue, I love protein and cooking it really, really well. So that's probably a good pastime.
Mm.
Travel. I love traveling, especially with Rachel and the boys. We just got back from Singapore, which is sort of a second home, except for COVID. We were there 2 or 3 times a year.
Mm.
And I'd usually go there when the boys were little. I'd go there to go to all these other countries and come back. And it was always during the holidays, because it was so safe and beautiful, and the food. I mean, the food's just incredible. But yeah, we all travel really well, and there's no stress. So traveling's probably our favorite to do together, because you leave everything behind. There's a fire call the fire department, right? Yeah. So besides that, just a little bit of gym. I love slashing the paddocks. I'm out there most weekends looking like I'm working in a nice big John Deere, a 6.5 meter slasher, and I'll sit out there for hours on end, and I look like I'm working, but I'm drinking a beer usually or drinking a coffee.
It's I've got one more exciting segment I want to move to kind of close out today. I mean, before I do, your story's exceptional. You said it so accurately. You said you're living out the American dream in Australia. And I'm not sure perhaps how different the Australian dream and the American dream is. There'd probably be pretty strong overlap there.
Capitalism. The capitalism of the United States is like their patriotism. Here, I think the social man, and me and Rachel are social people. We're not socialists.
It's a good frame.
I love sharing. I'm a realist, so I'm not an environmentalist, and I'm not a capitalist. So I want things to happen reasonably for everybody, and practicality comes into that. So I'm a practical man that wants the best for everybody, but you got to put in, and I did. And there's no greater country in the world. I give it my U.S. citizenship a couple decades ago. I'm an Australian. I would die for this country. I came home.
Wow.
When I came to Australia. Statement. I really did. I really, really did. Everything that's good that's happened to me has happened here. Everything. I'd go through that car accident 100 times over. That's what kept me here. I would.
It's I'm trying to think of the emotion, but it's confiding, or it feels good hearing that, because the narrative in Australia so often is people leaving. I don't know about your circles, but so many of my business circles, people are leaving. People aren't happy with it. And Australians, Australia can't celebrate Australia Day, let alone respect our troops. Patriotism isn't a word that I think we understand here properly.
Well, our patriotism here is in sport. That Anzac pride, the next best thing to New Zealand beating us or us beating New Zealand is one of us beating somebody else in the world. I saw Adesanya watch Volk get the belt back, and he was excited for his Aussie mate because we've kept it here.
Mm.
So Australia, I believe, our patriotism sport, we want to fuck you up. And we punch. Talk about punching. We punch it out of the universe when it comes to how many people we've got here, and how well we do in
Per
sport
capita,
in the world,
for sure.
any sport.
I mean, California, 40 million people. We've got 25.
So that spirit that exists here and New Zealand, that's what I've been given. I've lost the taking advantage of everybody at any cost, capitalistic view. Money doesn't make the person, doesn't make me a better man. And now I get to share it. Over here, you know what? I'll pay more tax. I'm not afraid of tax. I'll just make more money. If that's the way it has to be, I'd like to see it spent better. I mean, we've got a real housing crisis right now in Australia. And there was an article came out recently how we're the case study for what not to do when it comes to housing crisis and development bullshit. And all I'd ask the councils and the state governments and our federal government to do is, when it comes to things like that, get out of the way and let Australians do what they need to do. Taxes for it. Look, it goes into the system. We see it. It's not like we don't have good roads. It's not that we don't have good medical. Can it be better? Yep. And a lot of times it's just because we let it get caught up and we lose time. You got to be patient, but time won't wait for you either. And I don't have all the answers. I just know I love Australia. I wear Australia here first. My political party's way down here. I think I made a Liberal because I like money. I like growing things. I like paying tax too, so that the average Australian can have a leg up too. I don't mind doing that. But don't knock me down for it. I'm trying to help. So how are we helping? It's one of the reasons I'm doing this. I'm helping through conservation, but realistic conservation. We've got a croc trip with the Irwins in August. I think I can help. And on the other side with business, we've got a manager program. So we've been doing it all along the way, unknowingly. 25 of our stores are owned by previous managers. Some I've helped in a little bit, but this last one, Maddie, up at Gracemere in Rockhampton, I funded her in. I hope that in the next couple of years, we will not look outside the brand for our franchise partners. They will all be people who understand the brand, and I will put the money into. Now, that's no mean feat. I'm talking all of our growth. We're doing 19 stores this year.
Wow.
So in the years coming, that could be $15 to $20 million rolled into a 3-year fund that I'm supporting them. Get paid back. Nothing's for free, but it means they can go in because the banks won't believe in you when you're first starting out. I believe in you, though. I know what you're going to do. You're so integral with the brand, it's not funny. You grew up with it, So all of our growth will come for that. And what better place to put, and all I've asked the shareholders, I'm MD still, I'm still the founder, is we've got everything we want now, certainly got everything we need. So why don't we put it back into the people who believe in it to get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning and go open up, give them, because it's a stepping stone. Zarraffa is a stepping stone for people's lives. It's to go on and be a professional, finish their schooling. It's a place that they can have flexibility in their hours, make sure they get paid, but they're moving on in life. Or they're moving into corporate, or they're going to become franchisees. I don't want to lose these good people. I want to lose them into the brand. So that's our focus now. Most of the revenue, the next 3 to 4 years, most of the revenue after tax will go into the manager program, and it will continue as long as Rachel owns it.
Kenton Campbell, thank you very much for an incredible few hours. You're an inspiration.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. A forum like this is a wonderful way to express the good, the bad, and a bit of ugly. I hope that your listeners can get at least one thing out of my mistakes as well as some of my triumphs. Guess my parting thing would be stop patting yourself on the back and go find out what you're doing that you can improve on. Because the minute you stop patting yourself on the back, you'll grow. And although it's nice to have that shiny little medal, to get it again, it's just as hard. Thank you.